Welcome, welcome. Jesse here, otherwise known as Whitticus, and I'm here with all of my co-hosts here that are all collectively the Metaverse Nomads. And we're here to talk about all things Metaverse, all the different cool blockchain play-to-earn games that are in development. Some of them are already here, and others we're super excited about that have some progress. And we're here to talk a bit about a couple of them here today. I think we'll go ahead and kick off with some of the news so that we can get to the bulk of this broadcast, which is going to be focused on Star Atlas. So that brings us to the first part. I guess we have any Axie updates.
Yeah. So on the Axie Infinity front, I'm just gonna say the biggest news there is Binance and how there's a bridge that you can now you can direct. I got some feedback coming in, but for Binance, you can now directly send SLP not via the Ronin bridge to a Binance account, and they themselves, whoever it may be, a Filipino or a person with an account, they could swap via the on-chain bridge via Binance right into the peso, the Filipino peso, or whatever other currency you want. So Binance has their own bridge, and you don't necessarily have to pay exorbitant gas fees anymore, which is
that's active now.
Yeah.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Very cool.
So all your scholarship managers out there, you could just do a direct payout to your scholars, and it'll save them money and your money.
Nice. Is there any word on the street as to is there any word from the company itself if they have plans to make any adjustments for the economy as a whole? I share that because one of the things I've noticed is that the amount of available Axies in the marketplace has gone up exponentially. I mean, like probably something in the neighborhood of like 50,000 more than there were a week ago, which suggests that there's more people that are making Axies, either breeding them or selling them, than there are people who are actually buying them.
Right. So the floor price for Axies have took a dump for sure, and you could tell just from a couple of weeks ago. For a basic pure 99% pure Axie, you got the price going for 0.005, and that's pretty low. But there hasn't been any direct news from the team, but the team has been more so quiet than usual because I think the DEX and staking is going to be coming out very soon. So this month is what it's speculated to be, the release of those two things. But as far as the economy is concerned, we all know they have levers to keep the economy healthy for longer periods of time, and there's going to be a lot of added utility to Axies, which G-Host, the lead dev, mentioned, and which has been known, but this is because of the recent growth and all these new people coming in. You kind of have to say it every week, so people just don't think that Axie is a dead project, because it just like the price almost and touched $100 per Axis token. There's going to be a lot of surprises coming, so keep your eyes and ears open.
Yeah, awesome.
Is it still a game that people who've never played can get into and make money?
For sure, now than ever before, because for a team, a meta team, you could maybe pay under $1,000 now, $800 to $900, and that's relatively cheap compared to the months on end that you had to pay over $1,000, maybe close to 13, 14 for a meta team. So the breeding, I can't speak for everyone, but breeding is still profitable. If you look at the numbers, it's just different. It's just all to scale, right? And you gotta just if you're one of those types of people in the Axie community, you just gotta keep your numbers right, keep on top of everything.
I haven't been doing any breeding, but I guess one of the strategies you could do would just be to breed and hold, and just with anticipation that perhaps market prices will go back up.
Right. Axies are NFTs, and they are speculated on depending on rarity, and the quantity definitely impacts just the most common Axies. But nevertheless, you'll have Axies to enter the metaverse of Axie Infinity to play and take part in other areas of the game as time goes on. So
nice.
What's interesting is it seems like I'm seeing a lull in the number of people coming to our Discord to be scholars. It seemed like there was a peak of people coming through looking to be sponsored in some way. Is there a decrease in scholars going around too, or?
I think my experience with that is yes, but here's what I have to base it on. So I started with like 3 scholars, and that was it. I didn't recruit any more. They brought me scholars, and I'm up to 15 now. But the last person to bring me a scholar was like weeks ago. So it's kind of like there's not this rush of people sending me new people for scholars. So that's the only way that I can personally measure it, is that the people coming to me seeking a scholarship through my existing scholars has dropped off substantially.
Yeah, one way I gauge it is just your Discord messages. I'm getting an influx every day. If you have an Axie default photo, profile picture, or it'll go right through the Axie Infinity main Discord server, and they'll just message everyone routinely every day. Just,
I
wholesale
can see that.
outreach. Yeah. And so I don't think there will be. There's still so much more to grow, and there's so much more people that don't know about the project still in other countries, not just the Philippines. So,
Right.
Well, you got to think those groups that are playing Philippines specifically, they're savvy enough to be looking for the next best thing. So if something comes along that offers an extra, $20 or $40 a day, how likely do you think it will be for them to start jumping to different games?
very likely they'll have more time than any one of us in the West if we have like a full-time job with a family and children. But depending on the person and what their situation is, they'll play 4 hours to get the daily quest done, and that's all you really need to do, unless they're a hardcore PvP player, where that's where the earning potential really is, climbing the ladder. And then they'll play their other games that you just mentioned that might pay more upfront now because they're a project starting out and they want to incentivize everyone to come on board. But we'll see how the economy of the games play out over time and how they incentivize people to stay, because money, attracts and keeps people around.
An interesting observation, especially being that I have 15 scholars that all play the exact same team, the exact same build, but yet I have some that have a ranking down around 1,000 to 1,100, and then others and so the range is from there all the way up to 1,800. So there's definitely strategy involved, and those are my top producers. So like what I'm doing now, because you can do this with any Axie, you can actually put in an address and go watch their wins. So I'm creating a video of wins of my best players and making it available to all of my scholars, because it clearly the strategy gap between knowing how to play well, especially in PvP, makes a big difference for how much they earn.
Absolutely.
So my question to you on that one is are you or other groups paying scaled rates based on their output? So you got this range at the low end to the high end. Does your high end get the same output as the low end?
No, I have a baseline quota, and then I have a stage above that where they get an increased percentage. And so I have a lot of players that are striving for that.
So you're incentivizing success.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I see that taking place across a lot of Discords and guilds that are pretty much open about these types of things. And yeah, the extra incentivization of playing Axie Infinity up and climbing the leaderboards is always a thing that's going to keep everyone interested for the long haul as well.
But we really don't have a competitor yet, right? There's nothing major out there that's a competitor that people are playing. So I'll be curious, whatever company comes first, and it sounded like it was going to be Illuvium at first. But whatever company comes out and creates a serious challenge, they're going to get a lot of investment, I think.
Yeah,
I was going to say, the thing we don't know about Illuvium, if they're qualified to actually be considered a competitor, is because the requirements we don't know. Like, are they going to be mobile friendly with using Unreal Engine 5? Because a lot of people that are becoming scholars now, a lot of my scholars only have mobile. They're not on desktop, and they're not on desktop as well. And so we don't know if the actual requirements of the game is going to eliminate some people from being able to participate. That's an unknown still. Speaking of Illuvium, unless you guys got more on Axie, anything else you want to share?
I'm good.
Not on Axie, just to piggyback off of the Illuvium topic, that completely different games, and there's going to be things that I guess other games take from Axie Infinity to keep that attention on them as well. So, that's pretty obvious information, but go ahead.
Yeah, they definitely get the first to market mover advantage, and everyone else gets to leverage the trail that they've already blazed. And so they will always be remembered for that, regardless of what their future looks like. So that's pretty awesome. Speaking of Illuvium, Fancy Hat, do you have anything to share? I know that there was not a whole lot that's taken place, but I just wanted to check in with you and see if you've got anything Illuvium related that you wanted to speak to.
Yeah, there has been nominations for the Illuminati Council that have been going on, where people just say a little bit about themselves and they got nominated to be like a representative, which I think is quite cool. It sounds healthy for the game, and a lot of the people who are getting nominated do sound like they have the knowledge to impact the game in a good way, which I think is good.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I'd mention about Illuvium that I thought was pretty interesting is that, so this past week, or I don't know, has it been 2 weeks now? It's hard to keep up. There's so much news in this space right now, and it just keeps growing. But they mentioned that they're pushing things back. They mentioned that they're going to delay the actual launch of the first version of their game until next year. But even with that said, the market and the community responded favorably to that news. It wasn't, I mean, I'm sure there's some disappointment, but it was accepted well, as is fairly evident by the fact that Illuvium saw an all-time high this week, punched past 600. It's dropped back a little bit since then, but it's at 556 now. But it got up there and posted some impressive numbers. So that's at least a good sign for the faith that people have in the project.
Yeah, I'm sure some people will be happy to have more time to stake to get rewards for land and other opportunities. Like, none of the core foundations have changed. It's just more time to anticipate.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, another game that we've been following doesn't really have a whole lot of news for us to cover today, and that's things happening with Gala Games, other than they did release a blog post about their upcoming 4X space game, Echoes of Empire. It was a brief blog post, didn't really give too much details, mostly focused on just a touch of lore. But that's really all that's happened over there in that camp. Is there anything you guys want to mention about Gala or Mirandus?
Those Vox, the Miranda Vox, I think those dropped, I believe, as well. So
did
if
they?
you, I
They
think
did?
they did. I think they did. They're either that or they're mentioning that they're going to drop soon. I didn't really look too much into it because I
don't
wasn't
think they
affected.
did.
I wasn't affected by it. But
Yeah,
they did. Oh, go ahead.
I was saying, I don't think they dropped yet. And what they mentioned, though, was that for people that were impacted by that debacle that was their first drop, we're supposed to be getting some tickets, an NFT of sorts that's going to land in our inventory. I haven't gotten mine yet, so and I did submit a claim there. So at least that part hasn't taken place yet, or if it has, then there's some folks that didn't get them. So I'm assuming that hasn't happened yet.
I thought they did say it, so I wasn't affected part of it, so I really didn't look into it. I've just been hearing that it's going to drop soon, it's going to drop soon, it's going to drop soon. But just be prepared where if you do get it, it should supposedly be coming soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they said that the node owners are going to get some drops as well. We'll see how that goes. I know a number of us are node owners and haven't really got jack for NFTs. So
yeah, I've had a node since March, I think, and I have never received a node or an NFT as a part of the drops. Yeah,
that's amazing. I'd love to see the spread. They have to have that data that they're tracking somewhere.
Yeah. Well, cool. With that, yeah, man, we got so much to cover. We're about 15 minutes in. Let's dive into Star Atlas, man. What a week. One of the things that shines through that I think encompasses everything we're about to talk about is that you can look to a lot of projects out there. And for those of us that have been following, especially this NFT boom that's really starting to carry over into Solana network, is that there's a lot of botched launches, man. This is the Wild West, and there's a lot of upset people with a lot of projects and so much that can go wrong. And so when you do see something that goes as smoothly as the token, both the governance and in-game token, Atlas and Polis for Star Atlas, though it went over about as smooth as I've seen a launch go in quite some time. What are you guys' thoughts, man, about what's taken place in the past week?
Yeah, some people didn't like the method, but the execution was exactly how they wanted it to. Everyone who tried to get in had a chance. I know I botched my chance because when the whitelist on Apollo opened, I double-clicked on it. So the first click opened the MetaMask that I had to sign, but the second click, it minimized it. And that wasted like 2 seconds, and I'm pretty sure I didn't get on the whitelist because of that.
Oh, you're too fast, man.
Yeah, I happen to have won in the Radium lottery ticket. So out of 130,000 participants, with my 13 tickets, I actually got in. So thank the RNG gods.
Wow.
So as a U.S. citizen, I wasn't allowed to participate. But if I did, my lottery tickets wouldn't have won anything.
I mean, yeah. So all things considered, I guess I made out better than it wasn't. Didn't go exact. I mean, obviously, it could have been better. So I was in all of them. I was able to do FTX, but didn't get anything there. So that was the only one that was an actual exchange. And then the two DEXs, Apollo X, that one kind of went sideways. They had a big error. They had some issues during that one. And so they came back and kind of to do the second round lottery, which I was able to take part in. So got a little bit there. And then I guess I kind of got lucky. I got two winning tickets in Radium. And I know people that had a lot more potential. I had 9 potential, and 2 were winners on the Atlas side, not on the Polis side. But all in all, man, I mean, anybody that ended up getting anything has to be somewhat happy today, considering that they just 100x'd. I saw a 100x return on what they put in. So
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
I was okay with my hypothetical self not winning the lottery. But it was it was disappointing when the sales opened, and there was a mad rush for the sales in the swap pools. There was some losses there that were frustrating. I'll just put it that way. I think the people who got in within the first 30 minutes probably did really well. But knowing what your first click could have been versus what your final click was, and seeing the difference between that in dollars now, it's a little bit frustrating. But to everyone's point, I think it went off really, really well.
Yeah. And then even today, we're seeing things that aren't as wild with swings on Polis as it is with Atlas. But actually, let me do a quick screen share here of these two. So this one here.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll just say this one here, we're looking at Atlas, and I mean, we're talking about swings today that are ranging from 21 cents up to 26 cents, within a 24-hour window. So it's just wildly all over the place trying to find its feet. And then I think we're going to see a lot more of that with the Gala, the asset sale coming up here as people look to take some profits, part with probably both of these tokens to some degree to be able to have their USDC to be able to participate and buy some of these in-game assets as they launch here in the next. I think they start tomorrow. In fact, don't they?
No, the 7th.
Oh yeah. Okay, so 2 days out.
And then what you're saying, it's already the Polis has already been dropping steadily. So I believe what you're saying is potentially true. I think tomorrow you're going to see a bigger dip, and just because a lot of people did focus so much into the token. And
right.
Pulling, and then they're going to start selling it off, because right now, like I bought in at 7, and I just took a little bit of profits right now just to make sure that I'm even, and like I still have plenty of Polis in my pocket right now, and I think might be one of those people that might drop just a little bit more to make sure I have enough to get what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the people who participated in the farms are going to get wrecked, because there's a couple farms that have an ability to multiply what you're investing, and I put a little bit into that farm to see what was all about, because I had never done a farm like this before, and you have to keep it in there to get your equity back, your initial investment, and then you're making an earning on the side. So there's going to be people who get into some farms without realizing what they're doing, who get out and come out with less money than when they went in.
Farms going to be coming and collect. We need more.
Yeah.
And then
I
just wanted to throw in a little disclaimer. None of this is
Investment
financial advice.
Yeah.
None of it. This is all what I did personally. This is all what we're all doing personally, and it's up to you if you want to do it.
Our announcements and what we talk about on these streams should not be taken as financial advice for sure. But as far as myself, buy and hold all the way, and dollar cost average in and up and down, because we're in this for the long haul. And I personally am not going to be selling anything for the purposes of buying ships. I'm just going to make do with what I have outside of my initial investment and try to get ships. But when it comes to the long haul, it's just it's just going to be a better option for people, but not financial advice.
Jesse, what was the high there? What was the high there, and what is the current price right now for Polis?
This, what's funny? Like, this is not the correct Polis.
No. So
Well,
No, it can't be.
I can tell you the highest so far is a little over 16 from what I've seen, and then the lowest I think was
Yeah, look at it drop.
7.
Yeah,
Got it.
I'm sorry, 750 around there.
Yeah. Well, the reality is most people who got in on day one or got with the lottery allocations, they're still super far ahead. So
Yeah.
they're going to make profit no matter how far it drops.
I do want to say that first second when Polis went from 1 cent to $8, the second that opened, oh my God, like that's
Yeah, the FOMO, right? Click, 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 click.
What surprised me is the next day. Like I was like, okay, it's going to settle down here. Once it hit 13, it was sitting about right here at 13. I was like, all right, okay, it's probably going to settle back down. Nope. Let's come on up here to 19. Hang out up here in the 15s and 16s for a while.
Yeah.
It's it's been interesting. And then of course you look over here, the trading volume, but not only just for that one, but Star Atlas has just been nuts.
And it hasn't been,
Yeah.
and that's all just secondary market. It hasn't even been put to use yet.
Yeah. Just bizarre for something. And again, I mean, we got to keep in mind here, this is faith in a project because it's it's not something that you can even use right now. This is just the belief in what's being created. And I'm a believer. I mean, the team they're putting together, we saw mention there from from Wagner that they're expecting to top the scales of 400 people working on this project by the end of the year.
nice.
That's quite a team. So what do you think, guys? Where do you want to go from here? What do you want to talk about?
Well,
But
well, my thought is, since we're on the topic of the tokens right now, maybe talk a little bit how we plan to use, not necessarily we as Rome, but individually.
Sure.
How do you see? Are you going to lean heavily into Polis and try to play that game in the game, or are you just going to, work underneath others who are doing that within the same organization and then play the Atlas side?
Again, not financial advice, but my personal strategy on this one here was I was kind of trying to figure out what the market was going to do. And I actually, at one point, I think at like 13 to 15, sold everything, let it come down a little bit, jumped back in. And like right now, I'm out of pretty much everything because as we can see here, this part, I kind of anticipated this and probably even going to be quite a bit more. Again, just my thoughts, my own personal approach, just because of people needing or maybe not having the reserve resources to buy their ships and mining rigs and all that stuff, that they're going to take some of their wins here. And so this to me represents a good time to be buying in as it's going down, dollar cost averaging all the way down and keep it going up, because I see to answer your question, Polis is going to get the majority of my focus.
Got it.
Just because I mean, again, it's governance, so you're going to get some voting by staking it, and then you're getting some taxable income there as well. So to me, that's a fantastic coin that's going to do some earning. As where Atlas, again, it's in-game currency, but to me, it just doesn't quite carry the same weight.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, they're creating a DAO within the game to stake your Polis in the game as well.
Right.
So I mean, there's the added benefit to anyone who starts to stack Polis, starts to become an influential political player, like with whatever system or faction they're with. You get enough, you get to gain some power, some notoriety, and even I bet some of those people don't even actually play the game. They're more in kind of the meta as a big Polis holder and contribute, or using their Polis to create value for their Polis through the game.
Right.
But not really doing anything else. I think we're going to see some of that stuff.
Yeah, I could also see people who are more interested in the game focusing on setting some aside for everything they're going to buy. For example, if you have loads of land, if you don't use it effectively, there's going to be a tax. They talked about this quite in depth on the economic paper, but if you don't have enough to successfully use everything you have, people might be forced to start selling.
Do you think guilds will start requiring a certain amount of Polis for entry?
Potentially.
Maybe leadership ranks, perhaps.
That makes sense, right? Have a stake in the game, or have a kind of a floor level NFT ownership or value? I know we're open to everybody, so I don't want to set the stage for people who are watching this to think that we're going to do that. But I'm just curious about how that's going to work, because some of these more powerful corporations that start to show up within the game, they're going to need some entry level stuff, but they also need to work and maximize the value that they have for their corporations already.
Right.
How do you think people are going to approach that?
Maybe I didn't understand the full question. So, like, how are guilds or individuals?
How are guilds going to bar entry based on assets owned or value owned? What are they bringing to the table? Do you think there'll be maybe some offshoot groups that are kind of like exclusive groups, and you have to have a certain amount of assets to join it? If this is a metaverse and it's really something that is an expansion of real world, these are things that we see in the real world, exclusive clubs that are, locked by value or locked by power. And they're exclusive of other groups, right? They're kind of above those groups. So do you think that will start to happen in the game?
It's inevitable, I think. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think right now it's going to be, you need your assets just because nobody knows what's going on. No one really has the assets at the moment. But later on down the line, bigger groups like YGG could be like, here's the ship, right? And they're going to do like their own version of scholarships. And I think depending on how big other groups are, like if you have a big enough corporation, you're gonna have the material. And people are really gonna. I feel the bigger groups are gonna be lacking the manpower, so they're gonna be renting out their ships on that end. But I think if you're on the smaller end of the groups, like if someone decides to build a pirate group and then they just decide to go pillaging everything they see, I think that's definitely gonna be one of those bring your own ships. You got to bring your own assets for that.
What's interesting about the comparison to EVE is it seems like now with EVE Online, the corporations are so big that the ships are disposable. Like they have agreements where if you lose your ship in combat, we're going to replace your ship. So it's interesting to see how the dynamic's going to go from all this money being spent starting next week to 3 years from now. What's the revenue model going to be? What's it going to look like? And is it going to be going into the hands of the corporations that built up? Or is Star Atlas team going to kind of block that somehow?
I don't think it's going to take 3 years for us to see insurance policies. I think we're going to see that within a year. So, what makes you, I don't know a whole lot about what goes into, insurance risk mitigation and how you actually price that stuff out. If you've already lost one ship, do your premiums go up?
Oh, man.
It's just a fender bender.
Yeah. It's like your new pilot, those insurance prices going up, not until after 6 months.
Friendly fire is going to be a big issue.
Somebody could start a whole new career as a NFT actuary, right? That's really what you're describing.
Hey, new business model. Oh, can we go back to that snowy snail where he said where the Polis and Atlas are available? Just to answer that question. So Atlas is your basic in-game currency for everything. So gas, you want to buy a ship, you want to build anything, you want to sell anything, that's your in-game currency.
After launch.
After launch.
It's not good. You can't use it for this first round of asset purchases, contrary to what you might think.
Yeah, so they were thinking about it, but for the moment, the GAO is only USDC. And it's easier. The Star Atlas team said that it's easier for them to liquidate, to get money that way, basically, instead of having to get Atlas and then resell it. So for right now, that's in-game. Atlas is in-game currency. As for Polis is your governance token. So you can use that for either, and correct me if I'm wrong or if anyone wants to jump in, but it's used for pretty much the tax system. So if you ever want to actually do anything politically, or if you want to own a system, that's the one you want to use to generate tax. So if you're on the corporation side and you're on more on the leadership side, you probably want to own a little bit of Polis and Atlas. But if you're just in the game just to play the game, I would say Polis just to hold it in case it goes up. Not in financial advice, but your primary focus is going to be Atlas. So it just depends on how you're going to play the game.
Yeah, accurate. And so that comes right down to whether I think there's going to be different tiers of governance as well, whether it's the planet, whether it's a system, whether it's an entire faction, of which there are 3. which also kind of brings us to this other question. And sometimes it's easy for us to forget that there's people joining us that know nothing about what we're talking about. So I would say the quick 30-second overview of Star Atlas. If you've heard of games like Eve, big open space opera MMOs, that's what this is. They have quite a team that has really thought forward about the foundation of creating something very Ready Player One-ish. So if you could imagine the first project that's probably going to be similar, or at least aiming for that, the only one that I see on the horizon that's pushing in that direction right now is Star Atlas. And so a number of different ways you can participate in the game. One by being a pilot and being out there doing combat. You can also participate by staking claims and mining. You can be a part of the, as we've talked about with Polis, be a part of the political system and staking governance to be able to participate and vote. So that's just a quick high-level overview of what it is. We always forget there's people like, we want to tune in, but what the heck are you guys talking about? So there you go.
You know, what's interesting, Jesse, is what you just described as the creation of the metaverse. And if I were to have thought about that concept before you just talked about it, I would have said they're always going to start from the ground up. But in this case, they're starting from space and moving in, which is something that they actually describe in their promotional materials. Let's go inward, or let's do an implosion versus an explosion.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great visual for what you just described there.
And the concept as well as space. And I think that rather than just creating a game, and I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall at inception when they were like throwing the ideas around about what they wanted to create. And if you think about creating a game and you kind of put a fence around that, then you're looking for something a little bit different. I think they also wanted to look towards what is a foundation, what is an infrastructure that we can create so that one day it's no longer just about our game. I can imagine it just like Ready Player One, where you get in your ship and you go to this world, and this world is Axie, or this world is, Decentraland, or all these other things that are popping up and being built. So that to me shows that, and they've talked about having a 10 to 15 year idea of how they want to scale things and roll it out, and how they've had, nearly a dozen economists kind of start to work on this foundation. And the way that they're rolling stuff out so far, to me, is incredibly impressive. And of course, there's going to be hiccups, and there's going to be things that are unanticipated. I mean, this is part of the pioneering process. But so far, it's been pretty impressive how they've been able to meet timelines, how they've been able to have things, whether, again, as Fancy mentioned, whether or not people agreed with the approach, things rolled out as they had intended, which is pretty impressive.
It'll be interesting if we get to the point where the economists from different games are working together. And then you start to see the people can move from one, kind of like you just described, Ready Player One style, move from one game to another in your VR set, running through a door, and all of a sudden you're in a new world, same avatar, running through another door and getting into that world. All the economies are linked, all the assets are linked. That's when we'll start to get really close to that Ready Player One experience.
Yeah, it's exciting.
As long as you don't lose everything when you die, I'm cool.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you bring that up, Ultra, because as we were talking about Space Atlas specifically, really you have to think about what's the output, what's going to move money out of the game. And really, because in order to have a healthy economy, you have to have a cycle of creation and destruction, right? And it seems to me that this game has to endpoint at PvP and fully destructible PvP, because that's really what all these foundations and resources are building up to, is conquest, and that conquest is going to push out into deep space at some point. I think it's going to happen sooner than later.
Yeah.
And there's going to be people who are losing these high value assets, and that's where the creation, the destruction is going to come in, because I don't see an end game other than destruction of assets.
Well, I mean, from the very start, man, when you look at the trailer, they basically took a lion's den and threw an antelope carcass in the middle, which is a planet, a diamond the size of a planet. Okay, I mean, that right there is already setting the stage for, battle royale.
Yeah, no one. I don't care what alliance you have. No alliance is going to want to work together with that to get that. If you can find a diamond, and depending on how much potential monetary value that diamond planet has, like I think even the strongest alliances will break, just because they'd be like, no, I want that.
Yeah, and as soon as
Yeah.
word comes out that one guild found it, and that word spreads and the coordinates are found, and it's going to be mayhem. But I do agree, Banjo, that a majority of creation of value and the velocity of money that's going to be going in and out is going to be from destruction. But but on the flip side, there's a whole ecosystem that is not going to ever take part in PvP. That's
It's true.
that's gonna be reliant and dependent on the economy
The-
that they build themselves. It could be a nightclub, a casino, a grocery store for simply selling gas. It could be gas stations, right? So there's going to be so much more of I guess GDP that goes towards the sustainability of the ecosystem. And then for sure you're going to have those. It's just like the real world. You have the foreign policies of all these different guilds and countries, and they're going to be going out there destroying crap, and they have their own budgets to pay for things. And then you're going to have the civilians of these ecosystems and the game overall not tied to anything, and they're going to be living and thriving and doing their own thing to play and enjoy and earn. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is exciting.
Jesse,
Yeah, I
do you
think
mind?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Finish
Elton.
it. No, I was just gonna say I wanted to answer Mixer's question, but after you guys are done.
No, hit it.
Okay. So you're saying how can you lose assets? The only way you can lose assets is there's three zones. There's a safe zone, so that's your what it says, safe zone. Can't lose anything, no PvP whatsoever. Then there's the secondary zone, the medium security zone. That is where you can start initial PvP, and you don't lose your assets, but your assets can be not destroyed, damaged, is a better way to say it.
Reset to ground zero. So let's say that you have a mining claim that you've built up that's fully functional. I think it can be reset to zero, or perhaps a ship NFT that you've upgraded. I think that too can be reset, but you won't lose it.
Yeah, I think they're talking about not happening anymore. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they did. But there's talks where they just want to damage it, and if it's damaged, you just can't use it until it's repaired. But the higher tier it is, the more assets it's going to take to repair it. But that's what they've been talking about. I don't know.
One thing worth mentioning about all these safe zones and danger zones is that they all have their own profit multiplier. I'm not sure if it still works exactly this way, but in the safe zone, it's a base 1 times multiplier. In the medium zone, 3x. In the deep space, it's 8 multiplier. So everything you earn while in that ultra dangerous environment will be 8 times more profitable if that's how they do it. But I'm assuming it will be something like that to give you incentive to go into these places where there's such danger.
And I don't know if you know, but the diamond planet's in the deep zone where you can lose your assets.
Hint. The deep zone is going to be where your NFTs are destroyed completely, and that's where you'd have to kind of flush out the cash to get it back.
Yeah. And then but the caveat on that is if you do go to the deep zone and you win, the other ship, while it for the asset owner is burned, they're saying up to 80% of the ship and its assets can be salvaged. So you can find crew that ejected out of the escape pod. So you can take crew members, you can take modules, you can even take scraps. So and then you can use that to either resell or even just re-add it to your own ship to make it better.
Unfortunately, it won't be you salvaging them because that was your ship. So whoever destroyed you is the one who's going to be picking up your crew members, your resources, and the scavenging in the deep space. So just be careful.
And I think your own escape pod at that point, you're probably calling out for rescue.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Sorry, Banjo, but there's going to be signals that are put out that might attract more than just one person who just took part in that battle and lost or won. So you're going to have this kind of ongoing just ebbs and flows of scavengers versus people who just want to see what happened because they could just take some, and it's going to be collateral damage constantly. I think
it's going to be a lucrative job to be a scavenger or even a rescuer. Just to rescue your assets, to be like 1,000 Atlas. You're gonna pay it or not? Like, no, well, I guess I'm selling you. Like, I guess I'm selling your NFT.
How smart of an idea it was to put the diamond out in space, right? Because before deep space was this ambiguous thing. There's some assets out there, but now there's the one asset that people are going to be going after. And even within our own guild, the talk track has changed a little bit. You see some people who are more wanting to take a risk and go into a deeper part of space to build a foundation because they know it will get them closer to that potential asset. And then we have some people who are still like, no, let's play it safe. Let's pull back a little bit, right? And build out that way. So it's changed the talk track of a lot of different people when you have this unknown out there that provides great, resource and value.
One of the things about the mid-tier zone, if this still holds, again, these are all things that have been shared or within the Discord or at some point within a blog post. But one of the things mentioned was that within the mid-tier, it is an area that is patrolled. So I don't know if it's through mercenaries or some type of policing, but it is patrolled so that if you have the people that wish you ill will, there is some recourse for protection. And then also there was mention that how you set your status to aggressive or non-aggressive. If you set your status to non-aggressive and someone that's aggressive attacks you, you actually have a shield buff. So these are some of the things that I've seen mentioned in the past. Whether these make it to the game, don't know, but it at least gives you an idea of some of the developers thinking around how these different zones might work.
Yeah, and I got the idea that shield buff was both medium space and deep space, that you could set that flag in deep space as well.
That would be cool.
What's interesting to me is there's also been some side comments about some level of player versus environment play. So are there going to be NPC pirate groups that you come across out in medium space that you can attack and not be up against another player? It's a little bit more different. Maybe it's a little bit more routine, but still collect assets that way. And will there be PvE in deep space that might be a little bit more dangerous, but a little bit more lucrative too if you win?
We saw a clue yesterday that's kind of emphasized the fact that there's environmental risks, that even like your mining operations and things like that, that if you don't have some form of defense set up, you could have something from the environment taking or doing damage to your facilities.
Well, I mean, it stands to reason that we're going to be inhabiting some planets that have its own civilizations, right? So and unless they're talking about animals and plants that might attack your mining colonies, but I think it'd be awesome to have, this big power just landed on this planet with this primitive tribe.
Avatar.
And now they're Avatar. There you go. Well, shit, I don't want to be on the other end of that one, but yeah, exactly.
Unobtainium.
Yeah, unobtainium.
Yeah, I wanted to make a point too when it comes to guilds, not to derail the convo completely, but I don't think not any one guild should underestimate what another guild might be doing. We all know that, as in the world of EVE Online, trailblazed this whole kind of this system where you build economies in game and you can become profitable, just not with NFTs, but there will be spies that guilds have and people who are scouting other guilds. Right, so this is just the nature of the beast when it comes to these types of MMORPG games. But on that note, I would like to share that there's going to be specific announcements that Rome will make for how we are going to organize ourselves. So just make sure you stay tuned and join the Discord. So for future updates. So speaking too early now wouldn't be the wisest thing about like how we're going to play the game coming with this demo release, and I don't know. I don't know if it would be a great thing for anyone to just suggest what they're going to specialize in right out the gate, because there's a whole economy that needs to be built, and you could always think about what you want to do, but just like we all know, when you get into a game, you have to grind for many hours and many days or years to achieve just one specific thing. So we'll see how everything plays out, but stay tuned. Rome has updates.
Indeed. And speaking of guild stuff, we one of the things we did here within the Star Atlas Discord the past day or so is that we're about to enter that phase where you have to pick a faction, and you have 3 to choose from. You've got the Oni, which represents the Alien Alliance. You've got the Mud, which is the humans, and then the Ooster, which is the AI, the androids. And so what's interesting about this is that it's a permanent decision. Now, there is some allowance in there in that you can get a faction pass that gives you access to other factions, but we don't know what the actual long-term concerns are about which faction you chose at this point. For example, if factions go to war, if factions have differences, does that change the status of your faction passport if it's not your home faction? Also, we don't yet know what this means for guilds. So imagine all the people that are about to join that don't yet have a guild. That's going to be a little tricky, because if you choose a faction and then later discover that your guild that you would like to join is in another faction, that kind of presents some challenges for you. Now there's some things that you can certainly do, again, with communication and the passports, but we don't yet understand what it means for a guild to have all of their people within the same region. What would have been ideal, and this is something that maybe in the future they'll work into the mix, is that guilds, the known guilds, should actually have an early guild registration.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, when you go as a part of the sign up, you can do a drop down and check a guild. And that might also be an interesting thing where that could be for guilds to actually have another form of recruitment for people that aren't yet in your guild, but they see your guild, they can read up on it and say, hey, this sounds like a guild I would like to apply to be a part of.
Yeah, you're describing something that's absolutely going to happen when there's a lack of coordination between guilds and its guild members. There's going to be people picking the faction that they feel they want to play, and then they're going to be up against a guild that's in a different faction. So that's going to be a big struggle. I think this is going to be the first big schism for all the guilds that are creating, is the guilds who make a decision on what faction they want to go to, and then some guild members saying, "No, I'm out. I wanted to be in this faction," and then they bounce for that faction. I think you have to keep it as ambiguous as you can until we learn more. We don't know enough right now. I know there's some potential that we know more based on some stuff that might have been leaked, but we still are kind of in the dark on what the pros and cons are of the factions.
Yeah, I want to make a point too that you're going to have people joining guilds in the Star Atlas space, and they're going to be in multiple guilds, and they're just going to be either a nomad or just a regular member. But if they're not going to at least agree to take part in the guild and its specific structure to become a citizen or an official member, then there might be some things that are required in those specific guilds. So you could always shop around for a guild, but it's really going to come up to you're going to have to make a decision for the most part as far as what the guild is trying to achieve. But there's always room for creativity and what could take place. So
yeah.
So we know Jesse, I was going to say, we know we've got what coming next week. Sounds like we're going to be picking guild names, buying some ships. There's been some information out there. What do you have on your end?
Okay, so there's a couple of things that we want to go over. So for those who've already been with us for the 47 minutes, we're just getting to the juicy stuff. So we've got a couple documents here. We have the Star Atlas Gala PDF that we're going to go through bit by bit, look at the ships available, look at the pricing that's been put out there, and also talk perhaps a bit about how they're going to stagger them and when you could look to purchase one for yourself. Also, there has been and by the way, this document that just came out, it was leaked out. The Star Atlas ship brochure was leaked out, I don't know, perhaps even a week ago, within the past week, but it was officially released just within the past day or so. Another document that's found its way out there, and I want to preface this by saying that we don't know the source of this. We just happen to see it floating around out there. We don't know if it's accurate or not. So you need to take this with a grain of salt. So all we're really doing is sharing this with you here so that you're on the journey with us as we discover what is available out there. And again, someone could have photoshopped this. It has not been acknowledged to be an official source at this time. But it's interesting to look at as we theory craft ourselves. So even if this is someone else's theory crafting, it's still fun to take part and look at it and share our thoughts on it. And being that we are talking about factions, let's go ahead and pop that on the screen there and look at what this document suggests faction selection will be about. And while I'm doing that, I'm actually going to go ahead and put a banner up here. Let me type this. What should I put in here that we don't know what this is?
Unverified document, yes, something like that?
Yeah. May or may not be verified document.
Yeah.
Man.
Just put InfoWars at the top of it.
Oh, man.
While Jesse's doing that, I'm just going to give my first impressions when I first saw this document. I'm on the fence. My first initial reaction was this is fake. And for two reasons. One, because I thought the human didn't align with other things we've seen about the graphics with humans. It looks too cartoony to me.
Yeah.
Plus, there's a misspelling there, which led me to believe that this is fake as well. However, when you see it in connection with everything else, it starts to look more legitimate.
Yeah, the maneuvering that almost sounds more like manure-vering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and with respect to the fact that they have an international team, so there might have been a mistake there. But the cartoony human, I don't know, is what still has me questioning it.
And
Yeah.
then the other
I
thing
just-
that also kind
Go
of
ahead.
threw me off was that Oni, how it looks very similar to a Twi'lek, but I haven't seen that type of look for the Oni yet.
Wasn't that in
I
the promo video, the trailer?
I don't know if they look
Species?
like that.
It was a bit more zoomed in. We couldn't really see. It was blue in the trailer.
True.
I don't know. That's the only other thing that threw me off. Were those were the two things, and then someone mentioned the manuring, and that kind of threw me off as well. So
Yeah, I just want to make a point that what I thought, I didn't go through it specifically. I just briefly went over it. But my train of thought was, if this is not real, then Star Atlas will find out about it, and sure enough, they'll announce that this is just a fan made website or PDF or whatever it is, and
Right.
and it'll end there. But if it is, I'm surprised if Star Atlas hasn't found out about it yet, because it's been spreading around from what we know, and so we'll see.
And if it's not real, whoever did it, good job.
Yeah.
You did good work.
Hard work.
High quality shit post.
Yeah.
Indeed. So yeah, just from the perspective of treating it as a piece of theory crafting or just wish listing, being creative, it starts off here by saying faction selection is permanent, and we do know that is actually the case. And that your faction location determines your strategic advantage based on the crafting potential of nearby raw materials. So and here's the interesting thing is like, yeah, it may give us an advantage, but we don't know what that advantage is yet because we don't know the materials that are different in each of the factions, but it is going to play a role. So it's always that funny thing right now in the world of these games that roll out and we're purchasing NFTs. And we don't yet know what these NFTs do. We don't know what the strategic advantages are of decisions that we're having to make at this time. So it's a fascinating playground we find ourselves in.
When Fancy brought up a good point outside of the podcast here about it's like rock, paper, scissors. Who's the rock? Who's the paper? Who's the scissors?
Yes.
And how does that? What are the pros and cons of each faction in that game?
Yeah.
We see which one on the graphic that mud must be paper, right? Spread hand.
Well, what they show here is there is some clue. It's basically based on this unverified document. It's they are showing an advantage for each of the different factions here. So it's suggesting that for Oni, you're going to have stealth and scanning distance. For the Mud, you're going to have firepower and travel distance. And for the Ooster, you're going to have maneuvering and hold strength. So it ends up being that situation where, and I think you probably want to comment on this, Fancy Hat, because you had some pretty insightful things to share about it within our Discord, that, you've got stealth in the sense that you want to go undetected. You got firepower, as in you show up and you handle your business. You're the big dog on the block, because if someone messes with you, at least you know you got the firepower to back it up. And then maneuvering, Oosters, like if you do attack them, you got to be on point because they can probably navigate their ships with greater ease. I'm assuming that's what that means. But also hull strength, so they're going to be harder to take down. So that's interesting how they've separated these, at least given them different types of ability.
Maneuvering could also mean tactical capability, right? Maybe they have more tactical capability, not just from an escape perspective, but maybe there's something within like a fleet battle, some sort of perks that they get from that.
Short distance hopping, like warp.
Yeah.
So instead of warping interplanetary, you can go from like maybe a couple thousand miles, just poop, and pop up right behind them.
Yeah, imagine the dynamic of that battle when a fleet, a faction can warp in and out of spaces, and it's really going to F up your strategy, right? Unless you are strategizing against somebody doing that.
Yeah, I think maneuvering might be that much more fine-tuned, so you're not as susceptible of getting hit as many times if, let's say, you were following each other. So we'll see how it all plays out when you're in the sky.
Yeah.
So at first glance, oh, go ahead, Fancy.
In the Mud Captain blog post, they also is from the human's perspective at the beginning, I believe, and they describe the Ooster ships as smaller than their own, which does make sense looking at this.
You know, if you look at it from like a traditional role-playing game strategy, it's like the Ooster over here is the tank. He's got the whole strength there. You've got your DPS damage with this mud with the firepower here, and then what do you got? Like perhaps your casters out there with your scanning distance, so you can keep at range.
Support,
I guess rogue.
Support, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
something like that.
so at first glance, what do you got? I mean, from a player character, not so much from a faction character or perspective. What are you guys interested in? If these strengths go down to the player level, what do you guys think you're going to pick?
I haven't wavered from owning from even beforehand. I just something about an alliance of alien races just seems like, I mean, I mentioned this to you guys. One of the reasons I love living here in Amsterdam is that it's the melting pot, man. I got food choices. I got cultural stuff happening all around me. It's pretty cool. So that, and I also like the idea of knowing what's coming my way. So this being able to get where I'm getting without too many people knowing about it, with the stealth, and with the ability to scan and find out what's happening off in the distance. I like the owning.
Yeah, for me, it's a decision of which ship I'm thinking of at the GAO, because Swagner has talked about how certain races will be more proficient with their own native technology. So a human on a human ship would just be able to jump into it at maximum efficiency pretty much. But there'd be a learning curve if an Oni wanted to be in a human ship. I was thinking that it could be like a course at the academy, or you just have to put the man hours in for them to learn it.
Mm-hmm. Ultra, how about you?
I was thinking same thing. Like I would choose the race that with the ships that I want to use, which would be pretty much the stealth and the scanning. Because was it the Booze Pod? I can't remember. I can't think of the name right now. The one
Sopod.
Yeah, and whichever race goes for that, I'm most likely going to end up picking not that faction, but that specific race, just so I have the additional benefits for it.
That thing is decked out with scanners.
Yeah, boy, is it. Boy, is it. Ray, how about you?
Well, I always like the if this is how you pronounce it, the Ulster. So I wouldn't mind being that race. It's just that thinking about going into the game, wanting to be, I guess, the most profitable. I'm thinking not just for myself, but I'm thinking also guilds and groups of people. It's going to be more advantageous to be stealthy for longer in the midsection of the map.
Yeah.
So even though there'll be conflict there and you will take damage, you won't lose your NFTs, but you'll be able to last longer there to make enough money in Atlas or mining and then converting to be able to afford to lose a ship that you had purchased right out the gate when you started. Mm-hmm. So if that's just you playing individually, sure. I think majority of people who aren't in a guild are going to be doing that, but then also guilds. So I feel like there's going to be an influx or majority of people coming in as a Ani, but that's the whole point, is that if you're with a group of people, you want to diversify, in my opinion. So you have the ranks and file for each, where then you're able to have a holistic approach to whether it's combat, mining, or crafting for blueprints, either for weapons and different items that you're going to need. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I think I would want to go with stealth. So just to sum it all up, I would want to go with stealth because I think it would be the most profitable way to go starting. But then if you're not able to change, that's where I kind of get stuck.
It's interesting, the dynamic between the individual versus the guild. So individually, I'm with many of you. I've been talking about whatever race has stealth since we've been talking about this. So I wasn't too picky on the race specifically. I wanted the perks that go along with it. So if this document's accurate, Oni is where I'm going. My ship choice, I'm assuming the ship that I'm interested in is an Oni ship. So I plan on going that route. But it seems to me within a solid corporation that wants to live at the end game, you're going to need, producers, professors of each faction because of what they provide blueprint-wise, right? So you can't just focus on, an all one race guild. It wouldn't make any sense.
Right.
You really have to grow everybody, and if you want to live in the end game, because otherwise you're at the whim of another person's products.
Right, and this could be probably a little leak, but it's the most common sense, logical thing to do for any guild, which is you want to have an equal amount of members of your guild in being a human, AI, or an alien. So now you're kind of 50,000 feet, helicopter view. You have all the bases covered, and I guess it would work out the best in the long run. That as a larger group. Yep.
Yeah, because you need your tanks to soak up all that damage, and you need mud right behind them, just dishing out all that damage with Oni and their scanning devices, finding all the weaknesses. You need all of them.
And this is just straightforward. So this is what we will see. Like, it's just inevitable as people come into the game, in groups. It's just now it's a race to who is going to get there first, whether to the Diamond Planet, or who's going to have the largest military, or who's going to have the most funds earned or invested initially to have a greater stronghold.
And it will add complexity even to the size of a ship. So if you've got C-11s, you're going to outfit that with technology from each different faction based on what it needs, right? So if you're going to use human firepower technology on your C-11, you might use oosters for defense if that's how it works. So your crew is going to be a mixture of all these people. So it's not only, you're dealing with a lot of things as a admiral or a captain. You're dealing with your crew makeup, your mod makeup, or your component makeup. If it's an NPC crew member or a live player, and are they building up and giving you multipliers through their time with you? It's going to be a whole different level of managing in a kind of a micro economy or a micro system just on a ship. There's going to be so much mind share to this game. It's ridiculous.
So one of the things interesting that we have learned about ships is that your ship will be outfitted with a off-the-shelf crew, so that you can literally get in and pilot your ship without having to round up all your friends. Now, I'm assuming there's probably going to be some benefits to having some real folks step into those roles, especially depending upon how much they've advanced their skill tree. But some of the other things that we've learned is that let's say that you have a ship that is faction run, so maybe they get the benefits of flying their own type of ship for that faction, but then you have a ship that's non-faction run, same ship, but they have a crew that all trained at the same academy. They have a crew that's been in a service together longer. Both of those two things give crews and therefore your ship an additional buff. So I would say there's probably the potential for a lot of ways to kind of mitigate that whole thing of having to be a part of the same faction. You can get buffs for your ship other ways, especially the crew time together and having trained together. But Mega Raid Boss brings up an interesting point here. If all of us can use the same type of ship, I mean, when we look at Star Wars, when you see a TIE fighter or an X-Wing or something like that, you know whose team they play for. But now we're going to be in this situation where it's like, you recognize, there's going to be a lot of friendly fire.
Yeah, no, I hope they do have that level of friendly fire. I hope there is some risk even within your groups that you might, in those big battles, that you might hit each other. Mega Raid Boss pointed something up there down in the chat there. With all these cross-functional ships and not really having a cultural or a factional look, at least that we've seen so far, battles are going to be a little bit different. Is it just going to be like the red or the blue highlight above the ship's name that tells you where they are? Or will you be able to visually see, an Oni battle against a Ooster battle?
But we are looking, I mean, this game takes place, 400, 500, 600, how many years in the future? It's out there.
2060, something like that. Or I'm sorry, 26 something, but it's in like the 500 years from now.
Yeah, but so, I mean, at that point, you know what? Even now, it's like friendly fire in an aircraft is reduced because you can't lock on target and fire on something that's a friendly. So there's ways to work around that.
I don't know if you guys have been watching Discord, but we're getting a lot of people talking to us on Discord, which is fantastic. And somebody is doing some sketches while we're doing the show. Pretty awesome. Silstar, that's awesome. Dig it.
Very cool.
So, I know we haven't really. Well, maybe we don't want to talk about what faction we want to go to as a guild. I think everything that applies to the player characters is going to apply to Guild as well, with the addition of some additional parameters we need to consider. And actually, Jesse, you're moving right into it. That's a great segue into those leaderboards, because it very clearly says, if this is accurate in a document, what faction has what size and what value. And I hope this is the way they go, because I think this is going to help guilds kind of balance out in the multiverse or the metaverse.
Yeah. Ooh, which faction do you want to join? The biggest, please.
Well, you join the biggest, and then you're up against competition for resources, right? So
Yeah.
it's really a balancing game between, if these factions offer benefits, but also who's got the most competition, and no one wants to go up against a whale. Last week we kind of talked about the private buyers and how much polis they're going to have just by the nature of whatever private agreement they have. Do you really want to be up against them if you're trying to conquest and win the political game? It's hard to say.
I can also see a situation where you're out there and you do a scan of a ship, and maybe there's some way in the database to know who's like captaining that ship, and you kind of come over here to this leaderboard like, yeah, stand down.
Back off. Yeah, because you already know what their asset capability is, right?
Right.
I guess that's one of the pros, but I think it's worth discussing a lot of the cons about this system too, because I think a few of us see the risks of having this type of leaderboard down to the individual level. Anyone have any thoughts?
It literally gives a trophy for first place, second place, and third place. I think overall in factions that's quite cool, but knowing who literally has like the most could be quite dangerous. Yeah,
Especially those people that like to take down the big dog. Will just go around and just bother them all day. At least with the faction, you know the biggest faction, but you can't mess with the whole faction if it's big enough. Well, you can, but not the individual person.
Well, I also think there's a reason that people don't go down the street with their worth kind of tattooed on their forehead. You know, there's actual real world risks associating a person with an actual amount of in-game currency. And so that to me is one of the things that I find alarming. I could see like if it's your organizational leaderboard, that to me is brilliant. But down to the individual, I think that's a little sketchy, because basically here, when you click on a person and again, this, as you see here, unverified document, we don't know the source, but if this was something that Star Atlas was looking at, I think it could become a cautionary tale. So hope kind of in the we're not sure stage, because if you can narrow a person down to the organization they're in, screen name, fake or not, you can eventually kind of weave your way down into who a person is. And we will see the day where someone shows up on someone's door and says, give me your crypto. So
live doxing.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen in Eve kind of some of the out of game intrigue that happens. This stuff happens. People have real world money invested. Other people who don't have that money see an opportunity to get that out of the game. I think this is a bad idea, frankly. I hope there's an option to turn this off, right? Where you can say, don't put my name on this list, because there needs to be some anonymity here. It's nice to know who they are. Maybe there's some notoriety with it, but if you're into this for a couple million and you're putting your name up there, you're a target. That's all you are, is a target in game and out of game.
Yeah. Let it be optional, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we wouldn't have shown a unverified document if we weren't concerned about something inside of it. Like we don't know if this is true, but this is something that we wouldn't like. Another thing is usernames. If you can scroll down a bit, it says that you have to place a bid on a username, and after a 7-day period, the auction closes to the highest bidder. So for people who have been around, like what's stopping somebody from taking the name Swagner and just
What would be the point of that?
Exactly.
You know, like, what was their thought process? What do you guys think? Like, I mean, again, if this is something they were going to do, what would be that, like, a fly on the wall? Like, what would be that conversation where this could ever make sense?
Money.
Money.
It's their company. Like, it's like the more money they get, like, oh, we just got like 50 Ethereum instead of like 0.1, like 0.01 Ethereum. So I'm saying Ethereum Sol. Sorry. But it's like you can get $1,000 from doing this bidding auction versus $1.
Then why not do that with the ships as well? You know, I guess maybe they just chose one.
Yeah, and then this reason right here, and then the reason above where you can live dox people is the reason why I think it's fake.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
definitely not a good look, especially with the spelling mistakes. But it does look genuine in a way.
Yeah.
Like there's information on there that does logically lead from what they have told us, but I'm not sure if we want to show the whole document. Do we?
Yeah, but you know what's kind of interesting is that normally if you're going to create a fake, you might go to the extra detail of actually putting a different human for each instead of the same image. So it's clearly a mock-up. But
Right.
yeah, it's hard to say here.
Yeah, this could be a very early design.
Before we
Okay.
go on, I wanted to comment on one other thing about what I do think is interesting on these here is that for a faction, you will get you would see the top organization. So that's pretty cool. That's some fame and glory for your group. You get to see like the top organization asset value, which give or take. I mean, it tells you what the top org is worth. Total organization. So that kind of gives you an idea of are all the factions growing evenly? We won't know that. We don't, as early adopters, we don't really have that luxury. But someone coming in the game at a later date can say, "Oh, look, fewer or more here." Make a choice based on that sort of thing, as well as the total asset value of the faction as a whole. So that is interesting intel if that was something they were going to make available. And one of the things you would see here, you could see very much on this show here with Metaverse Nomads, us keeping you up to date on the weekly happenings within the game world of Star Atlas.
Yeah, the username thing I'm struggling with. You know, anyone who's any level of notoriety, whether you're somebody who's well known on the Discord because you help out a lot, or you're somebody who's seen as an antagonist, or you're in the public space, maybe promoting the game. You know, the way people buy up web addresses, URLs, I just see them trying to do this here and flip these. And I think it's going to piss off a lot of the community who just want to have their name in the game.
Right. Ship config. And again, these do say like this says they have these listed in phases, starting with username, phase 3.1, ship config in phase 3.2. I don't know if there's any firm dates on these phase rollouts, but here it tells us that all owned ships come with a default set of crew members, components, and modules as a bundle. This gives the player everything they need to set off on their first space mission and to earn rewards. However, ships also have interchangeable crew, components, and modules, which help to configure the ship to more effectively conquer individual missions. So that's kind of cool that you can, hey, it's like, how do I want to equip or outfit my ship for this particular mission or this particular race? I even heard somewhere, this is a racing module, but I heard somewhere that there will be different types of races. And so it's on some instances, you might even have a gunner to where you've got someone taking out other people within a race. Again, it's all speculation, but fun things to think about as they might go down. Any thoughts on the ship config?
I know for a fact that Michael said that any ship you get will be fully fueled, fully crewed, and will have the basic modules for everything. So I know that's true for sure. Everything else, I don't know about that, but.
Well, it's interesting because it sounds like we're going to be configuring ships before we even really use them. So we're taking a stab in the dark on buying some of these components without really knowing how much they benefit you in the game. But you almost have to if you want to start leveling this stuff up as soon as possible and gain some advantages of it from it.
That's pretty cool right here with Mixum saying here is that hopefully faction-oriented skins will be introduced. Not just faction. I want guild skins. Wouldn't that be awesome? A guild skin for your ship. I'd be all about that.
If you can't there has to be a way to signify your guild or your corporation on your ships. I just don't see how it works without it, right? It just builds to the whole idea of a community and the camaraderie and the loyalty and the pride. You see it on the Discord when people talk about Rome. There's a level of pride that they have there. So that has to show up in game through skins, in my opinion.
We see you peeking over there, Ray. What do you think, man? What do the rest of you think about ship skins or configuring that ship? Any other thoughts there?
Yeah, a good royal purple. That'd be nice.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
with orange accents.
Right, so you could just get spotted and shout out the sky.
Yeah, you guys saw in our intro there, man. We what that was there was a calico guardian sporting the Rome flags on both sides. How cool is that? I'd like to
Awesome.
see that happen.
Yeah, agree. Well, it's interesting. Ray just said getting shot out of the sky. I'm curious if these skins will have some sort of visual acuity. It seems like in a space game, you're going to be a long ways away from seeing a color, right? There's going to be a lot of long range distance battles. I think maybe if you do get that faction skin within a large battle that's up close and personal, then that will help the battle a little bit. But it goes back to what I said earlier about needing to be some variability between ships. Otherwise, it's just one big mass of people shooting at each other.
Be also fascinating to know what a long distance scan will tell you. Is it going to tell you the faction? Is it going to tell you the name of the ship? Is it going to tell you anything else about it? Is there like a known database that your ship is logged in that people can access? Does a scanner tell you even more? How many crew on board? Some of the things we've seen in some of the awesome space shows. Be interesting to see what we have access to.
Well, in Eve, people have pulled the APIs and they have their own third-party programs that do all that stuff as well. So you can log into a website and learn about what sectors to stay out of, because that's where all the destruction is happening. I'm hoping there's some level of that kind of meta that happens with Star Atlas too, because it just shows how a community can create tools that add to the game.
Be like the Waze app, broken down ship on the side of the road.
It's self-reported, right? Look, he shot me down.
Help!
Ship missions. All right, it's another piece of this puzzle here. It tells us that each mission comes with a brief about the mission that is to occur and how best to achieve success. Supposedly, within each of the factions, there's going to be someone that you can roll up to and say, hey, give me a mission. Find one of the 11 different role mission givers, it says here, in each faction, and introduce yourself to receive a mission. And each role has a specific license that levels up as you progress. Most missions have a multiplayer component and can be accomplished with more strength by building your own fleet. So essentially what this is telling us here is that go to your 11 different spots on your faction, and someone will be able to, like an NPC that's going to be able to assign quests to you. You get your quest. It's going to be a license, probably specific, and that license can build over time. So these quests are actually building your skill tree, or at least something associated with your license. And some of these missions will most likely even require a number of you within your guild. And again, guilds seem to be encouraged here pretty regularly. I've heard it mentioned quite a few times that you're obviously going to want to partner up with some folks. Will there be room for, the rogue or mercenary or just the individuals that are out there doing their own thing? Absolutely, I'm sure. But it sounds like some of these missions are going to require a group. What do you guys think?
I wonder if they're going to require certain ships. I think there's we've seen Wagner say that your return should be proportional to your investment, right? And we know that these ships can cost anywhere from $15 up to, well, 10 million or more based on the auction. So if you're taking a Titan, on a ship mission, what's your kick out or payback going to be versus if you're taking an Opus, or not an Opus, but a jet, an Opal on a mission? Is there, even within the mini game, is there going to be bigger payouts for bigger ships?
I will say, just add this, Michael did say it would behoove you to get a couple of variety of ships, because of the different ships will require different not assets, but different abilities. So if one might be a combat ship, you might want to bring a combat ship, not a freighter. And then same if you want to do another mission ship is hey, go transport this ore, you're probably going to want to bring a freighter so you can bring more ore, as an example.
Yeah. And then some of these ships, as we'll see here as we start going through the ship list, they all have like different things that they were designed to do. And so you kind of have to decide, like, what is the role you want to play? Or are you going to get multiple ships to be able to handle those things? Or are you going to try and find one ship that's going to try and do a bunch of all of that? But as we were just talking about the cost of ships there, as you mentioned, Banjo. It reminds me of that scene in Ready Player One where the mom's boyfriend took all the money that they were saving for a house, put it on a game, and then got pawned and lost it all. There's going to be some people that are going to be losing homes over money they put on a ship and thought they could find that diamond in space.
Yeah. There's going to be some sad stories for sure.
There are.
It's that glove, man. It's that glove that messed him up.
Do you
Blame it on the glove.
Yeah.
do you guys think that this will be the time? Because we know we already have people on our Discord who are here to work for people, right? They want to get into Star Atlas and they want to work for people, with or without some sort of in-game DAO to pay them. Do you think that people will start, finding a way to pay people to do their ship missions or be their crew members? So, like maybe I've got a guy in the Philippines who wants to be my crew member, and there's no way for me to pay him. Do you think that people will start paying out of the game to get this crew worked up to work for them?
I think so. I think that I think we're going to see a lot of stuff created in ways for people to interact and contracts that can be made that we haven't even dreamed up yet, that this is going to be the sandbox for where these ideas form. But yeah, and then of course you also have to think of like, how do you structure this so that you can't be taken advantage of, that we don't see cautionary tales like in Eve where someone within a guild ended up, just bringing the whole thing down by giving someone else access. So yeah, what is the blockchain methods, whether they're built within the game themselves or some third-party creation that allows for you to do this? Because yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I think that we will see a lot of that happen.
Yeah,
we haven't seen it. Oh, go ahead, Ray.
No, I just wanted to mention, like in Axie Infinity, we have these scholarship managers, and there's been stories of managers having a lot of scholars and just not paying them out. So at any point, scholarship manager, it's based on trust and a promise to pay, not necessarily the scholar or the crewmate that you'll have in the game actually getting anything until you make that click of the mouse to claim the funds and then pay out a potential co-worker or a crewmate.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's not the case, and it's almost inevitable to think that, or naive to think that it wouldn't happen. So hopefully, like just said, there's something that happens, whether it's in game or via mandated smart contract where this doesn't take place.
So, and like you said, like Axie Infinity, again, being one of the pioneers in the space, it is a trust thing, and it's a trust both ways. It's a trust that the manager is going to pay you, and it's trust that your scholar is not going to get your account banned. So it's an interesting dynamic right now, and so I think there will be some of that to start with. It's kind of like we're now in the NFT space, like even within these games. There's a couple of times where I've done over-the-counter trades. That's a trust thing. It's not ideal, and there's lots of people where that's come back to bite them. So it's going to be interesting to see how these contracts form to make these things easier for the average person in game to say, hey, let's do this, and here's a contract that helps us work this out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we have I know we have a number of people in our guild alone who are buying with the intent of I guess, hiring a workforce. And I don't see how you get the big players, because you can only fly one ship at a time, right? But if you're buying a bunch of other ships, you're going to have to hire somebody or find some way to rent them out. And I think the people that we know more intimately are looking for people to hire. They kind of believe in that whole ideology of giving opportunity to other people. So it'll be exciting to see how it plays out. I really hope Star Atlas puts the effort into the systems to do that within the game sooner than later.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Have we started talking about the station construction yet? Sorry, I only just got back.
Kick us off. What do you got, man?
Good
You want me to
segue,
read-
Fancy.
You want me to read this out? Yeah, I tell you what, I'll read this out because I know this print's hard for some people watching to see this. And then Fancy, jump in and give us your thoughts on it. So it says here, for gathering station construction, staking an asset with a claim stake claims ownership of it. Power plants serve to power and ancillary structures. Construct a mining drill or auto crop to begin immediately cultivating resources on your claim. Raw materials will pile up and be delivered to your nearest orbital space station when ready. at which point you may sell or refine these materials for crafting. Ambient threats may appear at your site, and protecting it with a defensive and offensive measures will be key to sustainability. Depending upon where you place your claim, you will either be gathering minerals, gases, or harvestables. A lot packed into that there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is interesting that you can place your claim stakes on minerals, gases, or harvestables. So would there be ambient threats out when you're farming a nebulae? What would that look like? But on a planet, that is very cool, imagining having to like set up your own defenses and conquering an entire solar system for a Dyson sphere. You'd have to conquer all these wildlife beforehand to be able to fully take over planets, really, wouldn't you?
It could even be indigenous population where imagine if an alien race came over and started just taking over our planet just to grab our resources. We'd fight back.
Mm-hmm.
That could potentially be one threat. Or natural disasters, of course, is another thing.
Yeah, imagine your land claim getting destroyed by an earthquake.
Oh.
Tragic.
Well, we know that picture there is a picture of a bunch of drones, right? And that's a drone factory or a drone repair building. So I'm wondering how much of this defense and offense can be automated through the use of a drone factory. I guess to have somebody watching all your mines all the time for this type of response would get cumbersome, right? At what point are you managing all your assets versus actually playing the game?
Yeah.
So there's going to need to be some level of automation.
Well, there's some suggested here. This is the first I heard mention of this in this statement here, the second sentence. It says, raw materials will pile up and be delivered to your nearest orbital space station when ready. They're making that sound a bit like an automated process, as where I would assume, like once you had a bunch of stuff stacked up, you probably need some cargo hauler or some freight to be able to take it to the nearest orbital space station. But it sounds here like that potentially could be an automated process. Maybe that's just something that the building itself has capabilities to do.
Yeah, there is purposes for freight outside of taking minerals off a planet, but it does make sense that would be one of its main functions if it just gets beamed up to a space station. That wouldn't be very realistic. It's one of them things about this document that made me question it a bit.
Yeah.
But, or can you attack the ship that's transporting from the ground to the spaceship, right? Because then even if it's automated, but you can attack it, then it lends a little bit more credibility. But the idea of moving a resource from the planet to a space station with no transit, I think you're right, Fancy. It takes away from the realism.
Yeah, especially it also takes away the business model of freighters. People just wanting to move things back and forth. Because I thought, isn't that what Michael said? Where you can have drills become dull, so you would have to replace them. You would have to replace any damage, and then you would need to move the raw material.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember him saying that, but then also I guess earlier in the months before, he said he didn't want the game to be a tedious grind right out the gate of just simply mining everything. So to have some things automated, he mentioned where's it going to take place. So my train of thought is it would help. See, that's the thing. It would help to have things all manual, where you would have to get there and do something instead of having it transported like automatically to a ship, because then that's an opportunity to hire someone to do that. But then again, if you're just a player, right, and you have one claiming stake and you only have one ship and you have like that experience is going to be personal to you. Like you might not want to just do mining for your own sake, and you want to do something else and fly around while you're the mining is taking place and being harvested and transported. So depending on how you look at it, it could be a positive for some and then a negative for some.
Well, if we look at how they do crew, which can be NPCs or players, maybe there's something with the mining stakes as well, where it can be NPC travel from ground to space station rather, but you can also hire a crew member to do it also. I mean, that would be the ideal situation.
Well, here's another consideration. We're talking a number of years in the future, and imagine this is Amazon 500 years from now. You're not going to have a whole lot of people in the process. This is going to be automation. It's kind of like you have some drones. I mean, we're talking about a time where we've got a whole faction that's Android. So for automating and having bots and things be able to say, hey, let's get your mined resources to the space station, doesn't really seem like it's going to take a lot of interaction from, an individual. But it's possible.
I agree with you. It's the process that we're trying. It's like the greatest achievement of our lifetime if we can automate a rocket going up to space and back down over and over again. It's one of them things that people are trying to do now, and in 500 years time it could very be like automated. But I don't like how I do like it, but it be kind of disregarding the thing we're working towards, like in real life, just by saying, "Oh yes, up in space now."
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are collectivizing and unionizing the metaverse as we talk. So, but they need jobs.
Well, isn't that a funny thing? It's kind of like the guy that works at the record player, the vinyl. We can't use that one really because vinyl is still really freaking popular and hot.
Yeah.
The 8-track guy, the guy that worked on the 8-track players, he's kind of looking for a job now. So there will be other things that people can do for sure. Like, the salvage guy, the space tow truck. I can see all that stuff happening. But at the end of the day, I think that we're going to see a lot of automation to remove some of that tediousness from the game itself.
Yeah.
There was some other clues in here that I thought were pretty interesting. And again, guys, sorry, we have normally Bonafides with us on here, and he's usually heading up the comments, which is why we don't have too many of those getting popped up here at the moment, but we will get to some of those. Here, it also talks about to the nearest orbital space station, or orbital. And we're going to get to where we're talking about space stations here, but it raises the question. So for those of us that have space stations as a part of our NFTs, and I think last we looked at it, there was like 24,000 of those that have already been minted. It's a lot of space stations. Mm-hmm. The question then becomes, can you place this is a space station only in space, or is it on the ground as well? I think they're going to have both. I think it can be orbital, or it can be on a plot of land that you're building somewhere. And then if it is orbital, which is pretty cool, that means that you can move your space station, kind of as we see here in that picture down below. So yeah, what do you guys think about that? Is there going to be a couple of different models? Can you move how does that work? What are your thoughts?
Michael verified in his little chat room on the Discord that you can move those assets. So he didn't talk about the time frames if you had to take it down and rebuild it, but he did imply that you'd be able to move your space station. I think what's interesting is we're seeing two different types of space stations be talked about. So we've got 3 that we know that they're developing, 1 for each faction. That's been mentioned. It might have been in some of these materials here, but I've heard that elsewhere as well. And then there's also been talk of 3 different type of specific space stations. One was the political space station, one was I think a trading station, and one was like a pirate's den. These are all custom designed space stations. So when we talk about them, I think they're different, right? And I think the ones we're talking about here are related specifically to production and building and growing out your own space station. And it seems to me if it's a reflection of fuel costs to get things from the ground to your space station, you're going to want a space station over every single mining stake. But then you're stuck in the position to have to level up each one as well.
Yeah, it is interesting. And then also, again, depending upon that zone you're in, you reset to 0. Mm-hmm. And what does that look like? Does that mean that you're down for production if you were mining something that required advanced build assets? And so now you're just you're down for an extended period of time. Kind of reminds me of those, I don't know if you guys watch those gold mining shows, man. Gold Rush. I love those shows. And those guys are spending most of their time just trying to keep their equipment functional. Mm-hmm. It's down again, man. We're shut down.
Yeah, downtime matters, right? I mean, it impacts your return on your investment if you can't keep yourself running. And my thought is the 3-time resource capability in that medium space, is that going to be enough to offset destruction? That's going to be the game that's played in medium space. Is can you keep up with is there what you're pulling out of the ground keeping up with your destruction levels?
Yeah. And I mean, is there demand for the money? How long is it going to take to recoup your investment for the things that you bought to be able to stake that claim, to get up to speed mining, to get your resources to where they can be refined? Are you doing the refining, or are you just passing that off to someone else? A lot of interesting considerations. And to me, that's what is going to make this game super interesting, is that you can pick and choose how you want to play, how you want to participate.
That's a great point, the startup costs, because some of these bigger mines are going to require a pretty hefty upfront. I think the encouraging thing that we've just learned over the past day is they were originally going to have an auction system for land, and it looks like they're pulling away from that to make it more fair, to allow the whales from coming in and just killing all the auctions of the prime land.
Yeah.
Did they ever say what they were going to do instead?
No, they have not yet. They said it's in progress.
Okay.
So just a quick read here again for those of you that aren't able to pull that up on your screen. It says an orbital space station is needed to sell on the open marketplace or refine advanced materials. Advanced materials require freighters to deliver to the buyer's destination. Alternatively, advanced materials can be used for crafting ships, components, and modules. Nearby players can utilize your space station for a fee. So that's kind of cool. So when we think in terms of having an asset out there that's needed, there's other ways that you can monetize it by a person who might set up a claim in that area next to yours, but they don't actually have a space station out there. You can charge them a fee to be able to take part in that. And then finally, in here it says performing a range of ancillary economic activity requires additional decks to be added to your station. These decks range from shipyards, cargo decks, and universities, and to rescue decks, weapons turrets, repair drones, and more. So they left out Cantina. I mean, there's no way you're having a space station out there near a mining rig where all the miners get finished up for the day. They need a Cantina.
Then their private OnlyFans room, right? So what's interesting about this is it sets up an interesting dynamic. Again, it's another arms race. So if you're a person who wants to run the best spaceship or space station above a planet, and you're going to spend your time upgrading that space station to get people who are mining on the planet to come to you instead of going to their own space station. And then if you think from the guild perspective, if you're going to build a kind of a master guild station, do you focus on producing resources, or do you focus on things like professors and learning and things that you can apply guild resources to collectively? And we're not spreading this all out between different spaceships or space stations, rather.
Yeah, all of this information was freely available before this, so it is quite a good little paragraph to explain it all at once, and the picture is nice. Mm-hmm. It will be interesting to know how much these space stations will be, because I imagine there'll be quite an asset if all these Titan ships are going for tens of millions. Then what would a space station of like appropriate size be worth?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, those Titans seem to be mobile space stations, right? Based on the description of them, they seem to be able to do anything a space station can do. And if you're a corporation that has one of those Titans, and that is true, then basically you're moving your entire operation to wherever the work is, which is awesome.
Yeah, those are some big behemoths, and we're about to get into that here in just a moment. We're looking at the Star Atlas Gal. In fact, we should probably go ahead and jump to that, being that we're already an hour and 40. But anyone want to wrap up here with space station construction?
Not the space station construction, but Menace does want to know where he can download it. I do want to say, Menace, read the very bottom where it says this is unverified and we don't know the source. So take everything we just said with a grain of salt. This is just more speculation and theory crafting at the moment. And then from, of course, what we know from what Michael has been saying, we've been adding in there.
Yeah, it got dropped in our chat by someone who had just joined, so it's not the most verifiable source, but there are a few concerning things. But it is quite an overall document.
Yep. But the next doc we are going to go over right now is verified, came down from the Star Atlas team themselves. So everything you can say is, just this one you can take a little bit more heart to it.
Yeah, but interestingly, this one was also leaked, as Whitaker said at the beginning of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
This one you can take to the bank because you're going to need a bank.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
How about we get rid of that banner, Whitaker?
Yeah, get rid of the banner.
yeah.
Oh, yes. This one's verified, folks. This one's verified. It's real.
Yeah, this one is real. The only thing is that $1, change that to 15. That's about it. Everything else though is good to go.
Yeah.
Cool.
I was in the chat when Wagner dropped this, and it created quite a stir. And it didn't. He said, "Don't leak, or I won't leak anymore." And it took about 4 days, I think, maybe 3 days, for it to get leaked broadly before people were talking about it. But it was, just another great example of how the team builds anticipation for things that are coming. And this is a great way for them to kind of get a pulse of the prices too, ahead of the sale.
One of the things that leads me to believe that this is just a part of the strategy, and it's a good one, and it makes it fun. This is fun that this is the way that information can be dispersed. Is that he did say in his channel, which another thing I think is great is he's got a channel where people can ask, you can ask the CEO questions and the CEO will answer, which is pretty cool. But someone was asking, like, is there going to be some document that says, hey, when things are released and things like that? He says, you got to check in with the site. That's part of the whole experience. And so the way that this stuff is rolling out, and I don't think a lot of these leaks are accidental. I think it's just part of the fun of the experience.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yep.
So inauguration. This is it. This is going to be wave 1 that kicks off in 2 days. It begins on Tuesday, September 7th. And it's going to be a 3-month campaign or until sold out. I think we can all agree it's not going to take 3 months.
No way.
3 days.
3 hours.
3 hours.
Ship asset sales of all sizes, fixed and auction from $1. I didn't see anything listed as $1. That'd be interesting. All the way up to 10 million plus. And so we're about to take a look at some of these. It says Star Atlas is having its first metaversal ship and asset NFTs sale. Limited supply of offerings of the inaugural asset that comprise the galactic spaceship, Spacescape. All right. Will be made available to the public. There's something special for all of the players and enthusiasts to discover. So essentially, folks, within 2 days, we're kicking off the first sale. And that sale is going to be a lot of different ships, from the things that are affordable to the things that, unless you're going to mortgage your house or you've got some stockpiles of crypto sitting around, you'll be looking at and envy. So regardless of where you sit, there's something for everyone in this. And with that, we got the small ships.
Before we get into the ships, I think it's fair to say for everyone who's listening, Wagner has also said that these ships will be released at different points within the campaign. So I don't expect on the 7th that we're going to see every single one of these ships for sale. We're going to see a certain amount, and then a few days later, another, cadre, and then after that, some more.
Well, here's a little tip for you. Mm-hmm. If you go to the site and you go to the marketplace and you click on any one of these ships, it will show a countdown timer. So you can see the staggered listings. For example, if you're looking to buy one of the Calico, the hero model ship, as you'll see here shortly, that one releases a day before the Calico Guardian. So you can go to the site now and actually see the countdown timers for each of these models.
Great.
Nice.
So small ships, man, starting at $15. One of the things we heard on the town hall the other night was that a Purchse 4, which is that, I think we can pull up a model of it here somewhere, but it's basically like the crotch rocket, the
rice burner
bike of the rice burner of space, which they're calling. By the way, this is listed as a fighter, which is interesting. So you're going to have people on these high speed, little fast maneuverable, not high damage, but if you get enough of them, you could probably have a little biker gang taking down some ships.
Yeah, we've seen one in a picture with some cannons on it, or maybe it was in the release trailer video. The in-game footage video they had where there was some sort of like Gatling guns on it. And it also says that it has, when you look at the NFT, it says it has a limited amount of storage. So this might be an opportunity for somebody who really wants to get into the game and doesn't have a lot of money to move things from place to place and start to build up some assets, as a contract work.
Yeah,
One of
it
the-
also lists the rarity. So there's common, uncommon, rare, and epic in the small ship category, and I think that denotes the amount of ships that are going to be available. So all uncommons will have like maybe a really, really high cap, so people can get in. Uncommon might half, and then half and half and half until there's a point where only like 100 people are getting a ship. I think that'd be quite cool, especially when they start to get destroyed as well. That artificial scarcity.
So I think one of the interesting observations about these that people should keep in mind, we're calling them ships, but technically, I don't know that we should, simply because this thing is not, it requires an atmosphere unless you are in a spacesuit yourself, maybe. Maybe that's one of the things they could do. But this here looks like it's mostly roaming within the atmosphere.
Well, the NFT actually says space travel.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, so I do believe you'll be able to do planetary space travel. I don't know about interplanetary or interplanetary system.
Interesting.
I think if I had one of these, I'd ride it naked too. Imagine how nice it would feel. The wind.
The wind out in space.
Yeah.
So if anyone's sketching us right now, that would be a great thing to sketch, is fancy naked on an X4.
There you go.
Don't forget the top hat.
Yeah, so we've got from 15 to 1,200. There looks to be 3, 6. There's 9 in this class. So the most affordable class, there's going to be 9 ships. And these ships are, as Fancy already mentioned, they have a rarity associated with them. But they also have an asset info where they are either determined to be a racer, a fighter, a bounty hunter, or a small fighter. There's various different sizes of fighters. But you've got 2 here, only 2 that make up the racers, and those are the Opal Jets and the Opal Jet. And we've seen those. See if we've got a picture here of this one here is the Opal Racer.
Yep.
So I'm assuming, it's the Opal Racer, so I'm assuming it's the extra small.
Yes.
Where the Jet, and this is another picture top down of that one. Praying Mantis, isn't that what this thing kind of reminds you of?
Yeah, a little bit.
It's got the little seat up in the front there. And then, do we have a picture of our?
It's your background.
Oh yeah, that's right. I don't know. I can get to that actually with all of our mugs on it, but we had another picture of it here. This one. I want to have like some rap going here, and actually, have like Snoop Dogg roll up in this thing here. It's looking.
Open up and then just.
I'm more inclined to see like some dingo balls and Cheech and Chong in that vehicle.
Awesome.
And a little bit of smoke.
Yeah. So pretty cool, man, that we're going to have some vehicles like this one. That goes back to the other model of that Pierce X4. But yeah, from this ship class, any thoughts? Like, you guys, even if you're planning on getting a larger ship, or you're looking to get a smaller one, you're right around. Although you already own these, if you have posters.
Most of us have, something between the Opal Jet and the Opal Jet. I mean, anybody who's bought posters, the early set of posters has those. The one that stands out for me that I'm interested in, I'm probably going to buy, is the Amway. One, I'm already planning on buying another Visas, however you pronounce it, ship down the line. But there's something about having an exclusive bounty hunter ship that's enticing to me. So I'm looking forward to getting that one. I don't even know what I'm going to use it for yet, but bounty hunter sounds fun.
Yeah, as it's the only one too for this category.
This round.
Right, for this round, for sure.
Do you recall what that one looks like?
I haven't seen it.
I don't think they revealed it.
Yeah.
So we've got on the ships here. By the way, I'm in the marketplace here, and we can see pretty much all of the ships, including skins. I was trying to see if we could track that one down.
We should look at the extra small ones and go up from here.
I think all you can see is stuff that's already been released to wallets. I don't think you can see the ships that haven't been released to wallets yet.
Yeah, so the extra small ones like Pierce X4, Pierce X5, and Jet, they all have unique descriptions on the website. The Pierce X5 is probably the coolest.
Yeah.
It
Without
looks. I didn't recognize it the first time I saw it in this shot because it totally looks like it's doing this maneuver where it just aims all of its guns forward. Because most of the shots that you see that one in,
It's extended.
it's like this right here. It's extended, so you don't really see. I mean, but that means those whole things tilt and just fire upon something. That's pretty wicked.
Yeah. 'Cause I believe they said that it has like four functions. And so you can either turn it into like an X-wing where all the guns face forward. You can turn it so all the engines face backwards. And you can do a combination of the two, I guess. So it just depends on what you need it for. Do you need to get the hell out of Dodge, or do you want to start shooting up Dodge?
Yeah.
Dodge.
One of the concept sketches of that spaceship also said police version, which leads me to believe that if there's going to be some sort of NPC fleet patrolling, that would be the vehicle that's used.
Yeah, this one does say cop on it right here. Fascinating, yeah.
Imagine seeing a really skillful X5 player like switching between all the forms, like in combat, and you just get completely wrecked. Like you're in a large ship, and there's just one X5 just backflipping and shit around you.
Yeah.
So annoying.
You're the Starbuck of Star Atlas.
Well, yeah, I'm imagining like somebody is going to get like a full-on one of those gyro gaming rigs, where they're just full-on fighter pilot, just using every joystick and every button to full-on manipulate these things. Because one of the things that they talked about as a team there is that they're actually beginning to build this stuff out for like military-grade VR rigs. And so if they're thinking that far ahead, there will come a time where literally I can see you in a cockpit in this gyro thing where you can do full 360 with a screen where you're actually doing these battles. So yeah, I can see some people doing some fantastic maneuvering with a craft like that.
It's almost required. Yeah, it's almost required if you want Ready Player One, right? You need that level of automation or mechanical ability to have that full experience.
And you don't even need a screen; you just need a VR set.
Yeah, absolutely. So back here, the ship. So you guys, you mentioned, Banjo, that you're looking at maybe this envoy here, this one here. And any thoughts? Like, which faction? Who do you think created that ship?
I think that's Oni. I don't know for sure, but it just the other Visa ship is based on stealth and scanning. If that Oni document or that document's correct about Oni being stealth, then I think it's an Oni ship.
Yeah. So this one we see on screen here is its big brother.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is they're calling that one that you're talking about a small bounty hunter. So what do we think that means? I mean, because you got fighters, you got racers.
It would be really cool if you could have a Visas envoy inside of your Visas OPOD, and your the OPOD it just scouting around, and as soon as you find something, just send out the bounty hunter. Because that's how the Calico Guardian and the Calico Compact Hero is going to work. You're going to be able to fit the Compact Hero like directly into the Guardian's home, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, I just made another connection to the document we shared previously where it talked about the Ooster having lock ability. And I'm wondering if a bounty hunter ship would have lock ability. Is that something that would lock onto another ship to gather its bounty? There's so much stuff that's up in the air right now. But to me, a bounty hunter ship, if there's the ability to go out and get a bounty on a human player.
You mean like a tractor beam? Like, hey,
like
buddy, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
Maybe there's a boot you can put them in.
What, carbonite? Right.
Yeah, I think if your deal is bounty hunter, man, that's like go back and watch some of that the Mandalorian.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then you have Oven Punch here saying that the Vicious is Ooster, and then the Rainbow Chi is Oni.
Oh,
nice. The Rainbow Chi looks interesting. That's a funky looking ship. It's pretty much, if you like clean aesthetics, where it almost looks like you're going to navigate that thing with your mind.
Who was surprised that it was a fighter? I thought for sure that thing was a freighter of some sort when I first saw it.
Well, there's two. The Ohm looks like a freighter, and then the other one I didn't know what it was classified as.
It's that wave
Okay,
looking
I'm
one,
getting
right?
confused. Yeah, maybe I'm just
Yeah.
getting them confused.
So one of them, you've got this funky looking. Where is it? We've had it on here before. Like this is the inside of the
Yeah.
chi, the rainbow chi. So like really, look, no real controls. Like how are you flying this thing? You just lay
It
back.
does look very alien.
Mhm.
It's pretty cool.
Wow.
So if the Visus Opod is Ooster and it still has stealth capabilities, that's quite interesting.
Yeah, it's
Because
one of those things we won't know until.
on that diagram you brought up that it's labeled for stealth. Is
Yeah.
that your one, Pedro?
Yeah, can you go back to that picture, Jesse? I know we're not there yet, but what are the different labels there for people who can't read that small print? Can you see it
Up
better?
here on top, it says stealth. This one here says
Data collection and
Yep.
observation platform on the bottom, and
drones.
pointing at its butt is drones.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there was something that was said prior to this little leak that we went over that said that the Ooster, or the AI race, was focused on stealth, and this new document changed that to say Oni. So my original inclination was to go AI and get this ship. So maybe there's some discrepancy there. Maybe that document is a leak, and some people are just trying to throw people off on a different path.
Yeah, that's 4D chess.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure what to make of like the symbol. Like it doesn't really say. Like this doesn't scream one faction over the other.
No, it doesn't. But the body style says organic, right, to me. So that's why I'm leaning towards Oni. But at the same time, we just don't know for sure. Can we tell what kind of species that is out in front of it?
Good question. No.
It's weird.
Yeah, hard to say what that is. But as far as if we're looking at it from an organic standpoint, the most organic looking ships seem to be these things
Rainbow
here.
cheese,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, like with
Well-
no real hard edges. Yeah.
When I saw that picture of that cockpit, I immediately thought Fotari, that light race, right? That's a
yeah.
part of the Oni.
Mm-hmm.
And that looks like tech that they might create, but it just seems from a racial standpoint, those Fotari could just turn into a ship, right? They're right. Aren't they kind of giving a form to interact with creatures?
Yeah.
And that's the form that shows up. So why not go into the form of a spaceship too?
Well, I mean, if you're a light being, what exactly do you need a spaceship for?
That's a good point. Very good point. To sleep every once in a while.
Yeah.
Recover.
Any other ships that you guys are interested in getting in that list?
I don't know much about the Tufa Feast, but it is quite interesting. It's an epic, so who knows how many there'll be. There is a triangle-looking ship at the top of this document, if you scroll up a bit. That could be it. Is it at the top? Might be below.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't remember.
I remember seeing it too. It's within the document somewhere.
Yeah, we'll find it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there we go. Here it is, right here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
one.
I'm thinking that this is the Ohm.
Yep.
This looks like the rainbow Ohm. If we can see some people here where you can see some kind of size. And so again, getting back to that interesting, strangely, form factor that just seems, very basic, but yet probably highly functional. But it's a freighter, which is interesting. That's how they're hauling freight in that thing.
It looks like a big rig.
Yeah. Or
And then
space cheese.
Yeah, so Tov says, is the Opal Jet going to be the fastest? And in the descriptions on the website, it talks about the Opal Jet being the little brother to the Opal Jet. So I assume the car version would be faster in the smallest category. So probably the best racer.
And the car version is it's warp capable as well, which I'm glad to see that there's some people who can buy in at the cheap level can still warp from system to system.
yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick, Jesse, can you grab that Jimmy Angels one where it says, can you check the numbers of the ships available? Just because I already know a lot of people have been asking this. And then I know Oven Punch already answered this, but I'm just going to say it on here so everybody knows. The number that is currently on the marketplace is the amount that is currently on the not on the market, but how many have been airdropped. So when the actual assets drop, that'll show the actual amount that are available. So right now, it's only what is currently available in everybody's wallets. It's not what's available now. So everyone's seeing like I think it's like 2,000 of the Opal jets. That's not it. They're going to drop a lot more. Michael even said they even increased the amount to make sure everybody at least gets something. So yeah, whatever you see on there that's not the actual number that's going to be dropped.
Yeah, the way they're launching these ships is really interesting, where they're not doing it all at once. So there's going to be people who wait, but I wonder if there's going to be people who FOMO in because of that delayed release, right? Like, oh, well, shoot, I better get this, and then I'm going to get this one. I'm curious to see how that plays out. I think we've had some private discussions on the sale, and my biggest concern is that we run into the same thing we've seen with some other NFT sales, is you lose out on what you really want.
Yeah, that's a real concern, because if you have your sight set on a particular ship and it gets time for that ship to be released, but you passed up some others, and then all of a sudden you don't get your ship, you're like, well, man, if I didn't know that, I'd have grabbed some of the other ones early on. Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting predicament.
Medium ships.
Medium ships it is. Let me bring this back up so we can see it a little bit better. By the way, that one is what's one? That's the Ogrica. Is that what that is right there?
Yep.
Yeah, Ogrica Threepid.
So it's the only legendary ship within the medium ship sizes there.
And actually, the cool thing is it even shows the skin for it on the top right there.
Yeah, it does.
It shows the skin. So on the right is what it's supposed to look like naturally, and then on the top is what the skin looks like.
Huh.
The exclusive poster skin. What is that? Yeah. Poster set 4,
I
think.
Yeah, I didn't notice that.
Can you get that zoomed in, Jesse?
For which one? The
price list.
Oh, gotcha. Yep. There we go. Voila.
Perfect. So
1,500 to 9,000. Here we are.
I'm hoping that's in order, because the ship I'm looking at is the first one, and I'd much rather pay 1,500 than 9,000. So
I think it's gonna be more than that, because that evac is the only uncommon.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's gonna be more.
What's interesting with these is you have to consider not only the in medium and large ship, but you have to think about the number of crew, and that might adjust the value or how much it costs as well. And we don't really know the crew size on all of these. I think Visa's OPOD is 3. I think the NFT says that.
Yep.
But there might be an adjustment where an uncommon is more expensive than a common, or vice versa. A common is more expensive than an uncommon, because it requires a larger crew, or maybe the specialty is different. So I don't think we can go just based on size of ship.
We also don't know the requirements, like license to fly it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I believe it's the racers don't need a license. Anything with a crew of 2 to 3 potentially needs the pilot, and then 3 or more needs a captain. But there are
trouble. You don't need a license to fly this thing.
So you're automatically buying a captain's license if you get one of these ships, right? So that's an added expense. We already talked about how these come with basic crew and components, but you're going to want to upgrade those. So it's not even just the cost of these medium and large ships. You're going to have to pay for the stuff that goes along with it as well.
Yeah. So from rarity here, we can see that this is we have a legendary in here, but other than that, it goes from uncommon to rare to epic. And then across these, we see some new asset models within here. We see that the one you've seen on the screen numerous times. I'll bring it up again just as a point of reference. I think this is going to be a very popular ship, and that is the Visa's OPOD, which is a medium data runner. It's the only ship that's actually classified as a data runner. Mm-hmm. And when you look at this thing, if you're doing reconnaissance, this thing has scanners all over it. As we've already mentioned here, you've got all these different modules that are able to really tell you what's going on. I think this is going to be a pretty popular ship. We've got a rescue ship, the Calico Evac. So again, this is an instance where imagine that you don't even have a guild. You're trying to figure out, what am I going to do to set up shop as an individual? What kind of business could I possibly get into? Well, you could buy yourself a Calico Evac and set up an evacuation business, or you could do it for your guild.
Well, and can they set up as an independent contractor where they're completely neutral, and by the look of their ship, maybe a certain skin, everyone knows not to attack them because they're a neutral party just supporting the back end of a battle. It's interesting if people will be able to make a business out of that, or if you're going to require one in every guild. And it seems to me big fleets will need a few of these.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of that, because I mean that's like on the honor system, like a medic on a battlefield. But what about that guy that's like, no, let me just take him out? Is there going to be a record of kills? Like if you get taken out, will you know who did it?
I hope so. I hope that gets recorded on the NFTs. I hope ships have the ability to say this is the ship that killed all these ships. That increases the value.
Or if you have sensors, perhaps it could be that you know who locked onto you. You could actually sense that who actually locked onto you as a target before your ship was blown up.
Yeah.
The rainbow. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna get right into the next ship and the freight. The idea that there's two freight ships in here. One's epic and one's rare. I was hoping there would be something that was a common freighter that people could buy into and use to move product. It seems a steep entry to move product around the game.
Yeah, the Thimbus BIOS Packlight has quite an interesting description. It's BYOS stands for Build It Yourself. So you get all the parts and you have to assemble it in whatever way you find best. And yeah, it's quite intriguing, really.
Yeah, I like that. That's pretty cool.
Does it say on there build your own?
Yep.
That's what it stands for. Thimble BYOS Packlight.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
that is interesting.
Where do you? That's on the actual.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So
go back.
Ah, this one.
Yeah, but if you go back to the ship
marketplace, because it's the tier 5 reward,
right.
the second ship they offer. So,
To the right.
it's next to the Visas.
Oh, this thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, the freighter.
Big
That
boy.
big old.
It says it right there. Build your own ship.
The big boy.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Everyone's gonna need one of those eventually.
Yeah.
I wonder if that could be constructed into a mining rig. Maybe that's how you do the clouds and stuff. Maybe it's not just about moving freight. Maybe there's the ability to turn that to another utility.
Yeah, I find the thimble line quite interesting. There's another one. I think it's a large, and it's not BYOS, but it could stand for something equally cool. I think it's like ECOS. It's on the marketplace, the brochure, I mean.
Oh, okay, sure.
But we can talk about the ECOS Grenadier. So
large
what ECOS stand for potentially. Who knows?
Well, that also, I mean, we were, you and I were chatting about this in the past, last night about the ships that are tagged as bombers. I mean, these things must be behemoths. When they show up, it's like, they're not there. They're just a chat.
As long as they don't do that bombing run just like they did in the that last Star Wars, where it was just air, like space, and then they're just dropping bombs.
But I wonder if that's meant to bomb, terrestrial assets, or can it bomb other ships as well, like do a strafing run?
Yeah, well, the surfaces of planets that have mining operations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you never know. A bomber.
I mean, is that the only way you can attack surface level stuff? Is with the bomber? Can fighters, get the same impact on a ground asset?
So we've got everything here from data runners to rescue to freight to fighters. Almost all of these in the medium class, and then there's a multi-role, which is the Calico. And Calico seems to be pretty, as a shipbuilder, it's really hard to say. I mean, it looks like something humans would build, but it's hard to say what they are. You have the evac model, which is a medium rescue. You've got the Calico Compact Hero, a medium multi-role, which is basically saying that, hey, whether you're looking to haul something, fight something, travel the distance, it's got something for you in there. We got this large bomber, a large fighter, and then this Pierce R8, which is kind of fascinating. We've seen schematics for it here, where this thing is a refueler or a repair ship, depending upon how you outfit it, because we can see that in some instances, it's got this big refueling module on it, but it's also has these repair arms on the front.
So I think it can be both, and it's retractable. So in this case, the arms are outwards, and it looks like they're doing damage to it, but I guess they're repairing. Yeah. I wonder how much fuel you could put in there. Is that enough for small ships, like several of them, or perhaps a couple medium ships? Because that is on the large scale, isn't it?
Yeah. And can the thing refuel itself for some long distance travel?
Right. Well, that's the thing. When you're out in deep space with some of these ships, you either have to maintain your own fuel or have a refueling system. But a ship that size doesn't seem big enough to refuel maybe a capital ship. So how is a capital going to refuel in deep space? The other thing, I guess this goes along with my comments about the freight liner, is I'm surprised that a repair refuel vehicle and the freights are so expensive when those are the things that kind of move the money around, if you will, the value.
So, I mean, if I had to guess, being that we've got uncommon, this Calico evac is probably in the low end. So it's probably the 1500. Then from on the high end, we've got this legendary. So this Ogrica is probably the 9000. So that leaves us with some rares and some epics. And the epics, what are we guessing? Maybe 7, 8? And then the rares are in the 3 to 4, maybe?
Yeah. That's my guess.
They are also divided into medium and large, so that's going to play a big factor. So the 3 large, I would suspect they're about at least like plus 6,000, like in the upper echelon of the price range.
So these may be the 6 and ups, and then everything below that, huh?
Yeah, that's what I'm expecting.
Well, and then again, going back to what I said before, the crew size, right? If it's a 6-man crew, it's probably going to be a little bit more expensive than a 3-man crew.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variability in this class of ship that could impact cost.
It says here that for spacefaring captain ready to command their first set of diverse crew members, medium and large vessels dominate their intended role functions. Station crews of 3 or more and pack up for the long haul. These ships have it all. So, yeah, for a person really looking to get in and have a gaming experience where this is kind of like their utility ship that's going to be their primary function without having to get something of a capital class, the medium and large seems to be where it's at. Probably going to be higher numbers here than what we see going forward.
Yeah, what this is telling me is the cost to play is a little bit higher than I anticipated for what I plan to do. Ship wise, and then you've got to balance that out with mining assets as well if you want to generate revenue. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic how people, if they spend more towards the resource generation or spend more to the gameplay.
Indeed. That brings us to capital ships. This is our second to last category here.
Let's look at those numbers.
Yeah, 25 to 30 grand. And these are all tagged as legendary. And even though they do have a couple different roles, we've got transport. So which is interesting when you think about it. Transport, it's not like freight. So that's people, bodies, it sounds like. Transport, maybe. I don't know. Multi-role, the Calico Guardian. We got a capital fighter and a capital bomber. These are all big dogs. I don't know if we zoom out here. Maybe we can see what they've got for pictures of them. Oh, that's the command ship.
We've seen 2 of these, right? That's the Pierce right there, isn't it? Or no, that's the
Calico. That's the Guardian. That's the Guardian. The one below it is the Pierce C9.
Got it. We haven't seen the other 2. Again, it's interesting that we have things from different manufacturers that don't seem faction specific. So if for an Ogrica, I think we identified that as potentially an Oni ship. Yeah. Now, if you're going to fly that in a human faction, are you going to need an Oni captain to be the best, or admiral or whatever you need to pilot that ship for you, or will you get by with a human piloting that ship?
Or perhaps if a portion of your crew are of that faction. Yeah. But all legendary, so I think we're starting to scale down in what is actually going to be available, even, which I'm curious. So how do they figure out the ratios? How do they decide that at this point of early game stage, here's how many ships we should release to be enough? Because I've heard this number being bounced around, not a specific number, but that the number itself was ebbing and flowing as they're coming closer to release. At some point, they added more ships than they had originally planned for. So hopefully there's enough. And it's not going to be one of those situations where a lot of us are going to be left disappointed not being able to get what we had hoped for.
That's the biggest fear as well. Any
if
thoughts
you,
on the ships? Oh, sorry, Jesse, I didn't mean to jump
oh,
in.
no, I was going to ask you the same thing. I mean, for me, I mean, the most beautiful ship on this thing here, and you guys saw it in our opening scene there, is that I'm a fan of this Calico Guardian. So if
AKA Jesse's buying one.
if the NFT gods are on my side, that's what I'll be rocking. So,
Yeah, it's interesting. There's another ecos there, so that is obviously something to do with
Bombing.
bombers. Yeah, maybe you can attach it to a space station, and then it becomes like a defensive or offensive space station. That'd be quite cool.
yeah.
Or if you could attach it to another ship, like you have a capital class ship, and it's literally just like one big component, and it's a cannon.
You know, I wonder if that transport ship is also a vehicle transport. Like maybe it can move small fighters from, you know, safe space into deep space to allow you to move your fleet, the non-warping fleet, right?
Yeah, there's a transport in the large category, no, the medium category as well. So quite glad there's going to be ways to like shuttle people around if they can't afford a ship.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a picture. I don't know if it's on the Discord or if I saw it in one of the artists' concepts, you know, websites that they have out there. But there is a kind of a biological-looking ship that's huge and has little ships flying into the nose of it, and maybe that's something like a transport. But it seems to me that in order to be a successful, you know, top-tier corporation, you're going to need to be able to move not just people around, but some of your smaller assets around as quickly as possible.
Actually, thinking about that, the Ogrica might be a carrier.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Basically,
Yeah.
a people and a resource carrier or a ship carrier.
Yeah. It says here that deep space missions and expanding the reach of all civilizations is what a capital class starship is designed for. An expansive bridge crew and a full ship of capable officers will spearhead any fleet towards any galactic destination. Find a home in a capital ship.
Yeah.
So these are big boys here.
I mean, if you think about the different IPs out there, that's your Battlestar Galactica, right? Or maybe your Star Destroyer. You know, what other ships in different space themes would those represent?
Right.
Enterprise?
Yeah. Yeah. And for length, I think what are these guys, like 300 meters, something like that?
Yeah, I'll find that out. 1 second.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, but they're a couple hundred. They're easily a couple hundred.
That's like 3 football fields, right? Something like that. Or is that 300? Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
so the capital ships. I'll start from the bottom. Extra small is 4 to 6. No, extra small is 4 to 6. Extra small is 8 to 12. Small 18 to 28. Medium 32 to 50 meters. Large 60 to 130 meters.
Wow.
Capital 200 to 400 meters. So it starts to step up, and you can kind of imagine how they fit inside of each other.
Yeah.
So I don't think a capital ship will be able to fit a large ship in because it's about a third of its size, but yeah, it could probably fit a couple mediums in it, and a commander could fit a large. It's quite a cool concept.
Yeah.
So it's official. We're all getting capital ships.
Well, we know quite a few people who are.
Yeah.
You know, this is where people are starting to see the value in domination. These are the assets that they're looking at as far as this is how I navigate safely without, you know, all these little X4s and X5s and X6s attacking me.
Without having to look over your shoulder all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
This is quite interesting. If Tov is spending 25 to 30k on a capital ship, he just don't think he'll bring it to deep space, which is what its intended purpose for. It's essentially a very risky game if you're putting down money for this, because it's a chip that if you don't use, you won't be getting the proper value out of it, essentially.
Yeah. So my turn, I totally agree with you. And my frame of thought is always like reverse engineer the goal or the purpose of even obtaining one of these in the beginning. Maybe it's not going to be worth for anyone necessarily buying it outright in the beginning. And this is just a theory. But if you have 80% of people who can't afford it, then they're going to obviously have to go the route of accumulating enough and trading and working to get to the point where they can buy one. And if not, you're going to buy one. But then if you only had that amount of money, which is $25,000 to $30,000, then I guess the better route for you would be to buy claiming stakes and to buy smaller ships that you could hang around and maybe dip your toes into the mid region where it's kind of a threat, but you wouldn't lose your ship completely. So for whoever is trying to get in, you got to really think about who you're going to be with, not only your faction, but what route do you want to take, because you want to be profitable to stay in the game and not feel like you're getting wrecked every day of your life, as if you were working a 9 to 5 in the real world and not just having enough every time.
So a consideration about that is that in the very beginning with this mini game, you're going to be doing ship missions against the environment. So there's not going to be any PvP there. So you're going to get a feel for what your ship can do, what it can take damage-wise. Once we do have PvP, then it's time to take your ship into the mid-tier zone. Because in the mid-tier zone, you can lose, you can get reset and lose money and lose valuable build time, but you're not going to lose your ship. And that's going to give you an idea. Like, let's say that you don't want to be attacked. Someone attacks you. How quickly can your ship be destroyed? Can they disable you? Do you have shields? Can you get to safety? Can you say, you know what? I don't like this guy firing on me. My shields are down halfway. I'm going to go to the safe zone. So perhaps the same thing could happen in space. So I don't think it's going to be the situation where you take your $30,000 capital ship out to deep space, and all of a sudden you're exploring and you get hit and you're done. I don't think it's going to be like that.
That'd be terrible.
Yeah. Well, do you think the ship missions will have capital level ship missions, and will the payouts be proportionate to the investment?
I think so.
That's like the whole point, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if they will necessarily be specific to being a capital level ship mission, because you could take multiple large or medium ships. I think there'll be missions that a capital ship could do without assistance, perhaps.
That makes sense.
I do like how the Ogrica Jord Asteris, that's a weird name, but how it's a capital class transport ship. So, for example, if you don't want to risk taking your ship out to deep space, you could just get one that isn't a fighter. You could get one that does transport from safe planets to safe planets, just doing that 24/7.
Well, Wagner has said something in the past about somebody being a person who creates a business out of moving people from event to event. And he often uses the idea of an EDM show, like a virtual EDM show. So maybe this is a transport that is built to move people from one place to another. And maybe it has some level of buffs. Maybe the resources inside the ship give some level of buff to the people who are taking that ship to the new event.
That's also an instance where, stealth. It's like, hey, we're not going to run into trouble because nobody's going to see us on our route.
Right.
Fancy, I didn't mean you had a comment up, and I think I pulled it down.
I brought the same one back up because it was about
cool.
Yeah.
So is anyone short of Jesse and the Calico Guardian? Is anyone looking at any of these ships?
I think we're looking.
Yes.
I think I'm.
Yes.
Through a plate glass window.
Love window shopping.
I break the window. No, I'm joking. But I did want to mention to just the last topic of just how we just can't forget how the societies are going to be built up, where there's going to be some co-interdependency on just how everything is going to be outside of just battling and destroying things. So that's going to be a major part of this world that's being developed and the economy. So we could always gear up for war whenever it's needed, but we can't overlook the day in and day out of just being in the game without that, which is going to be it's going to be busy in there.
I'm a little more cynical on it. Just having watched enough on EVE and the game styles and how people showed up and the intrigue that happened, I think we're going to devolve into the same level of base humanity in Star Atlas, especially with money involved. I think there'll be entrepreneurs and stuff who create, but I think the real action is going to be once these people start fighting with one another or destroying them from within.
Yeah, without a doubt. I see that definitely having the most entertainment value, but maybe not, because I'm thinking about this NFT space. You're going to be able to have your own land or your own gallery, and there's going to be a whole bunch of people coming into this space.
True.
Because you'll be able to buy your sneakers from Nike and they might have their own planet or place of commerce where you can buy things via the in-game platform, and then you have it shipped to your house. So we can't just like overlook. I'm not saying any one of us are, but it's almost like you can get caught up in a particular category of the game where there's going to be many of them. So if we're going to have real world commerce coming into the game, just like on the sandbox, you have Atari who bought up a whole bunch of plots of land. It's not just a game at that point. They just might be there to sell things, not even to play the game of sandbox itself. They might create a game for people, but that's the whole thing. You're going to have people developing places and stores and just businesses that have nothing to do with fighting. And that might take hold earlier than just the fighting itself, because we have to build up towards mining resources and building out these structures and upgrading the ships. So I see, art galleries being a thing for a little while, and then another phase would be, what stores of big companies are going to come in, because now there's a Snoop Dogg, collab, and then he's going to have his own gallery store, and then only opals are able to pull up, and you have VIP access, like who knows? And then there's going to be parties. There's going to be, metaversal drugs that are being taken, in the back VIP rooms, because all you have is a pilot's, badge, or who knows. But there's going to be a lot of time spent not mining and not fighting. I can see a lot of time spent doing other things that are more social instead of fighting. So it's all interesting to see how it all plays out over time.
Like that Ferengi in Deep Space Nine, that's just never even leaves his bar,
Yeah, Wagner.
But
he said there'll be people who never leave ships, who never leaves the inner region, who it's gonna be crazy.
Well, some of the ships are actually described as having everything you need for long space journeys, including like these massive theater rooms for entertainment. It's pretty interesting.
It's like the Enterprise D. We just explore. That's all we do. We have 1,000 people. Bring your families. Come on, let's go explore.
Right. So I know for a fact someone's going to build something out in the farther region where there is PvP, but it's probably going to be a club, like the most dangerous club that you're going to have to get to. And if you want to talk with the black market, whoever, the elusive man of the metaverse of the Star Atlas, who does the black market dealings, who knows? Like you could literally be whoever you want.
I'm going to find a planet out in the furthest deserted reaches, and it's going to become Burning Man.
There you go. Good luck getting there if you can. And when you're there, you've reached enlightenment. Full enlightenment.
We're going to need Eureka to get there. To get anyone there.
I think the destruction will be a bit more than burning a wooden statue. It's interesting though that there's high risk, high reward there, and the first corporation who really does nail down a sector of deep space is really going to be well off financially, and with the understanding that could all get lost, but somebody's going to do it. I mean, this game is built for somebody to do that, and who's it going to be is the question, and how, I guess, utopian are they going to be once they've gained a toehold? Are they going to own the space? Are they going to try create a commerce space for multiple people, and are they going to grow wealth that way? There's two ways to approach that.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking about is how they are doing racing and how that could be done in different zones. So imagine in deep space, a race that has been streamed to like tens of thousands of people, and one of them like crashes into a rock and it's gone forever. The crowd cheers.
Wow. Yeah, crowd cheers.
What I think is going to be fascinating is that we're going to see things that we're not even dreaming up now. Mm-hmm. And when I mentioned Burning Man earlier, I was at Burning Man in, I think, 2013. And it's interesting, that year the theme was cargo cult. It was the Burning Man on top of this big UFO. So there's kind of a space theme there. But what's interesting is that for an extended period of time, you just don't see anything that relates to corporations. So I'm thinking that you're going to see some planets that embrace that, some areas that do, and some that absolutely don't, that are going to be looking for more of like an indie vibe. So it's going to be really interesting to see humanity's expression in this metaverse. And to me, that's one of the most attractive things about what the sandbox is that we're creating, that we're calling the metaverse. And us here as the Metaverse Nomads, looking at all of the different games. We're here today talking about Star Atlas, but the overall theme is this metaverse, this virtual world that's being created that has real world application, and for us to kind of stretch our wings in this space and say, what would we like to create in this playground? So it's going to be super exciting. And I'm glad that Star Atlas is the one kind of laying the foundation for us to kind of test things out to start with.
Well, just by the nature of their relationship with Animoca Brands kind of tells you that that's a possibility, right? So we've now got Star Atlas affiliated with an organization that represents a number of different games. So the idea that there's going to be and there's already talk of cross-asset use between Star Atlas and some of those other IPs. So I think you're right. I think we're just at the beginning of it. It'll be awesome to see if your, Calico Guardian ship is going to give you the same advantages in a different world.
Good point. So that brings us to, we've got all these here. That brings us to the big behemoths. And by the way, it was mentioned that this ship here is actually a C11. Let me see if I can zoom out here a bit. There we go. So that's actually, it says 9 on it for a number, but it's got an 11 on here on the side.
Troll.
What's that?
It's like, what a troll. It has both C9 and 11. So which one is it?
Yeah, right.
I'm everything.
But that is a big behemoth right there.
Actually, yeah. Look at the top. You can even see. I think those are those tank
tanks.
ships. Yeah, the whole tanks.
Yeah.
I'd just like to mention
Bad
before we
times.
get into any details, I know for a fact we're going to be seeing a lot of these. And that's simply because of the NFT gaming / NFT art space. There's so much money just being sloshed around on a daily basis. Look at the market caps of coins and then their individual projects. Once and this is just from the ecosystem of the crypto space and NFT gaming space. So we have people with this type of money that they wouldn't bat an eye coming from outside of the crypto space. So I don't, without a doubt, not see us seeing these everywhere. Like these are probably relatively cheap.
Well, the thing that won't make it everywhere is the actual quantity available. Like you see, one is listed as legendary, so the account's already down, and then you have anomaly. So I'm assuming this is the only anomaly class that is not on auction. Anything beyond here that's anomaly is actually going to be auctioned off. So I think that Star Atlas is probably going to make this so that it could be potentially rare. I don't know. I think I agree with you that this is not a tough sell, especially in the current market climate in NFT space. But I think that there may be a cap placed on it, initially at least. And then the other thing we don't know about all these ships is like, what is the cost going to be, the time required to build one of these ships later on if you can't get them as a part of this sale?
Well, T5 space station with a T5 shipbuilding, like everything T5
with a whole crew of the same species. So,
Right.
but to that point, I'm thinking if it's going to be equivalent to the dollar amount, then it would happen. It would need to be the amount, maybe in Polis or Atlas or whatever resources. So I know Atlas would fluctuate, but if it's going to be more of an SLP type of token, it's not going to be mooning to the sky and become $10, right? It's going to be a very volatile token because it's going to be what I think SLP is for Axie Infinity, where its only use case is for in-game purposes, as SLP is. So it will stabilize and still be volatile, but only within a certain range, unless a freaking whale comes in and buys like half of the supply off the secondary market. But
good right now.
In that case, then you would be able to build this, and it would have to equate to, maybe the amount of what it's purchasable for.
Well, here's a funny thought. If you were able to get in on this ICO, IDO, IEO, and you actually were able to get your hands on $1,000 worth of Atlas, you got this ship. That's that's kind of what happened with the token.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about this ships in particular that we're looking at is the hatch on the right-hand side there. Jesse, I saw your mouse cover over it a second ago. There's 2 X5s flying in right there. So that is an example of how big that ship is. It's going to have its own fleet that hangs out with it of different, combat ships or support ships. So again, if you're somebody who's buys a commander, the value of this is what you can do with it. And if you're not if you're just buying to invest with the ship, the NFT, and you're not leveraging the capability of it, then what's the point? I just don't see him.
unless they're thinking they can flip it other than
Yeah,
two ways.
exactly.
So if we take a look at the description here, it says your fleet needs a commander, and this class of ship predominantly reigns supreme. The fitting head for any faction or organization, and the size of a small space station. Commander class ships can secure any region of the more terrifying corners of space. So that's basically, it's not even using the word it can defend itself and venture into those. It's saying it can secure those regions. So these suckers, which come in two forms, the Pierce C11 is a fighter, the Thimble is a bomber, which is an anomaly in the rarity level. That these are badasses. These are ones that are going out into deep space, and unless you're showing up with equal or larger, put it this way: if you have a commander ship and you're out in deep space, unless a guild has organized against you, you pretty much don't have much to worry about, is what it sounds like at this point.
Agreed. And it's probably all due to armament, and I just wonder, we talked about hull tanks being on that ship. Do you have to buy each hull tank as well? Is that another $1,000 purchase? Right. If you want to put, 26 hull tanks on your ship. So this is the initial investment is all we're looking at. There's so much more that's going to be required to invest in these ships.
Right. Is this like the entry level Tesla model that then has upgrades or something?
Yeah.
Like, where do you go from here? It's like, can you deck out over time like another 250,000 for this commander ship?
Probably.
So
if
is the only thing that can stop a trio, a Pierce C11 or the Titan class? That would be quite a weird dynamic if you have a solar system on your control and that just rocks up and you can't do anything apart from like try and beg someone. Yeah.
Well, I wonder if go ahead, Jesse.
I was just saying, I think that I read that they're trying to stage it in such a way that potentially, if you had 10,000 people show up on the Pierce X5, that potentially, with enough, it's like enough bees, enough bees in a hive can take down a human, kind of thing.
I'm wondering if the layout here, and it goes back to what I said about bombers before, is do you need a bomber to decimate a planetary system enough to wipe out their resources, or can you do it with a fighter? Maybe the fighter is more geared towards protection in space, but the bomber is more geared towards conquest.
Yeah, I was thinking if I wanted to take over a planet in the deep zone, if you have a Pierce C11 and that Thimble and a couple of C9s, like, what's going to stop you? You just need one to probably decimate whatever's on that planet. The Thimble is what I'm talking about.
So it's a good time to say, if anyone has a lot of money and wants to buy this stuff, we'll happily manage it for you and play it for you.
Indeed. So we've got the commander ships here, and that leads us to the final section, which is the Titan ship. This is the big behemoth. It's like a Death Star floating around, man.
Actually, and the funny thing is, this isn't even the biggest.
Yeah, right?
What's the biggest?
Motherships. Motherships are 5,000 plus. Meters.
Let me check.
I think this hits between 2,000 to 5,000 meters. And then these are auction ships.
Yeah. So it says here, the ultimate piece of space traveling hardware. A Titan-class ship supports massive crews and full colonies with self-sustaining ecosystems on board. Equal to the firepower of a large space station plus an entire fleet of lesser ships, securing your territory has never been easier. So essentially, rather than having, this is like a space station in space. So, it's when we think of like the Enterprise or something like that, I think this is probably more Enterprise class, where you have an entire an entire colony of people that are going from place to place. It's pretty fascinating.
This reminds me of Stargate, like Stargate Atlantis, where you have this whole city moving from place to place, and it has everything you need there. And this is also, again, going to have its own army, right? It's going to have its own repair ships. It's going to have its own fighter ships. And whoever buys these is either going to need to implore others to come in and support, or they're going to have to buy all the stuff that goes along with it.
Yeah, there it is. There's the sizes right there. Look at that. Like, and you imagine that when I think of mothership, I think of, you guys remember that movie Independence Day?
Yeah.
Yeah, when that big old ship shows up to Earth, and then you have your Titan ships are the ones that just hover over each city right before they blow them up.
So here's an interesting comparison for you guys here. Let me drop this over here. I can move it over in this one. I was looking up. Well, let me do it. I was trying to look up what the size of the U.S. Enterprise, 300 meters. So that's what the Star Trek Enterprise was.
Wow.
OG.
You know, there's a video out there that walks you through the sizes of all the ships, of all the different like space video games and TV shows and movies. And the Enterprise is relatively small compared to some of these other ones. But when we look at the Enterprise, it seems like a big ship, right?
Yeah.
That's
actually
right. We should drop a link for that. That was a
video?
great video. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, never mind. Go ahead. Keep going.
Have you seen that? You guys, the rest of you guys, seen that one where it shows all the ship sizes and all of the different space genre movies and what the actual size was, and it starts at the smallest and moves to the largest. It's a pretty impressive video.
Yeah, it's a great video.
Yeah, that'd be great to know with a comparison of all the Star Atlas sizes.
I've got it. I'll drop it in the chat, the YouTube chat.
So
sweet.
I can tell you the biggest Enterprise is the Enterprise D. So that's the next generation version. That one can hold 1,000 people, and it's only 642 meters in length. And that ship's big in the Star Trek universe.
Nice. So let me zoom out a little bit, and we can get an actual shot of one here. Look at that.
That's a great picture.
Whoa. Look at that thing. That is just, when you look at those little lights, and you can imagine that like that one little light represents a sizable space within the ship. That's just amazing.
I like how the rarity is classed as anomaly. It makes it sound like one-off. Imagine if there is only like one of all these Titans. That'd be quite cool.
It looks like
that's the Busan. I think that's the Busan. That's my guess.
So these are probably like citadels then, right? If we want to do like a Mirandus kind of a NFT asset comparison. It's probably
citadels can move.
Right.
Yeah.
Citadel in space.
Citadel of the Wind. There you go.
With a picture of it already.
Yeah.
Still don't know what the Citadel looks like in Miranda's.
But yeah, oh man, I can only imagine once they actually drop a mothership, what that would look like.
Right.
I'm wondering if the motherships that they're talking about are the stations that they're building. That I talked about earlier between the political one, the trading one, and the I guess the criminal one. I wonder if those are going to be motherships that are not sold just in game.
Right. Now, for those of you tuning into this and are somewhat new to Star Atlas as a whole, this game is being developed on Unreal Engine 5, which is pretty amazing. If you haven't seen the videos, you want to go and check those out. Just look at some of the games that are using that space and their nanite technology, and also Google MetaHuman. You can get an idea of the quality of gameplay that we're moving towards. And so we don't yet know what it'll be like. So the way that some of these ships are being described, you may be able to have a complete experience, as we've already talked about, where you're walking around in a space station. You're walking around in your ship, going from one section to another. And so now we just have this topical lore in some of these ships and some of the art creative and stuff that's been shared. And it's amazing. And what I think is most impressive about this is that I have the belief, and I think a lot of you guys do as well, that this team is really set on pulling this off. They've got the game designers. As we mentioned, they're looking to have upwards of 400 people staffed by the end of the year that are really pushing forward with this. And so it's really going to be something pretty special as it continues to unfold.
Yeah. There's a dialogue happening in chat on YouTube right now around the Busan, and somebody says that it's unique. But somebody else says that that was hundreds of years ago before the game starts. So there's some disagreement on whether we'll see more than one in the game. But also, what I think is interesting is I didn't expect to see so many people looking so heavily into some of these higher price ships. But there's actually a lot of interest. It's going to be interesting to see how the guilds show up in the game.
Well, one of the things that kind of demonstrates that interest, again, if we come over here looking at, and by the way, as it was mentioned earlier, look at that, people are gearing up for sales. Right now, people are starting to sell off their Star Atlas.
The cam's still on Banjo.
Yeah, there's some opportunity there as people are selling off on this.
We can't see your chart there, Jesse. You got it on me.
Get that pose.
Wait, well, there we go. Boom.
Oh, boy. Oh, why we're here.
Look at this. This has happened
recording.
since the time that we have been here. Star Atlas has dropped down quite a bit. It's in the 22-cent range now. And we're going to see, I think as we gear up towards sale, we're going to see a lot more of that. And by the way, let me do a refresh here just to make sure where we at now.
Yeah.
19 cents.
Wow. Well, providing you're not worried about impermanent loss in the liquidity pools, if people are pulling out of those, this actually works in your favor because you'll get a larger share of the daily distribution if you're staying in.
Yeah,
this is the lowest price it's been in a while. Here, 13, back down to 13 that quick. Yeah, this is as we all suspected. And this has just happened since we've been here on this podcast, and we talked about at the very beginning that was likely to start dropping, and I think it's going to continue to drop. And this just represents opportunity. But the thing that is really impressive here is when we start looking at the trading volume numbers, especially for Star Atlas, 112 million in trade volume for a token that's brand new that really doesn't have any application yet, not even for this upcoming sale. So based on this, the interest and the people that are buying chips, I think it's beginning to make more sense.
And it's only a small portion of what's been dropped so far because they've already said we're going to mine most of the Atlas in the game itself. So this is only a small portion, and this is if it's already going nuts this much. But hopefully it'll like what Ray was saying, it'll eventually stabilize once the game starts coming in. We start bringing in more Atlas. It should start to stabilize at an eventual price. Because
then it wouldn't be feasible or makes any sense to it wouldn't be sustainable because then you'd have to buy gas, repair, build things, trade. It wouldn't succeed as an economy in the game. So hopefully it happens sooner than later.
Indeed. Well, guys, man, we're at 2 hours and 46 minutes. I think we cleared out both of those documents. That was the last one with the Titan ship. Any closing thoughts? I mean, I know that we have the sale coming up here. We're obviously going to have a lot more to talk about next week as we're going to be talking about what took place during this sale, finding out who got what, how things went. It's going to be exciting times from here on out. I think we've been waiting for events. There's kind of like been this holding pattern in the space, especially with Star Atlas. We're gearing up for stuff, and now I think it's going to start to roll out pretty consistently from here. So each week, as we talk about Star Atlas, we're going to have some pretty amazing things to talk about. Any closing thoughts, guys?
I do want to bring up when you were saying the trailers, or not the trailers, the Purchse X4. If you missed the town hall, they did drop the Purchse X4 studio trailer, and you can find that in the chat with Swagner in their Star Atlas. And he was saying initially he thought it was just a video, and then Danny was like, "No, that's in game. That's what it's going to look like in game." And damn, that it looks nice. I'd highly recommend you go over, watch it. If you've seen it, watch it again. If you haven't seen it, watch it and then watch it again because it looks really nice.
Yeah, and to that point, if you missed the town hall number 15, which was just yesterday or a day ago, we also have that on our page right now. So you can click on videos, and the video right before this one, you'll see that town hall, so you can catch up on everything.
Yeah, in fact, by watching this here, be sure to subscribe and jab that notification bell so that you get notification when we're about to do these here. And one of our hosts here, Banjo, he's been kind of taking the helm there with making sure that we are streaming those town hall meetings. And so by watching and viewing, that's another way that you're supporting the channel. So we'll be sure to continue doing that.
Yeah, thank you. And I think also it's worth stating that the format that we do with this show, we love to have guests on. So if you're somebody who's very passionate about the game, has something to say or something specific you want to talk about, we love having a guest every once in a while. We're trying to get somebody special as a guest right now. So, come join us in our Discord. If you want to get on and chat with us directly, let us know behind the scenes.
Yeah, and another thought about our Discord is that we are a guild. This here is not necessarily all guild related. All guilds are absolutely welcome, but the all of us as a collective group, the Metaverse Nomads, we are also part of Rome, and so it's a guild that will be very active within Star Atlas. For those of you just joining us, if you are looking for a guild, and it has been mentioned that, of course, that guilds are encouraged because there's going to be a lot of gameplay within Star Atlas that is going to be team-based. And as you saw by the organizations, by the leaderboards, it's really going to help. And we can see someone here saying, how do we join the guild? Well, there will be a link in the channel or in the description of this video on the channel that's going to give you directions on how you can come join us. And we have actually a fantastic guild that's got great structure. You come in to the guild kind of as a nomad, and from there you kind of get to check us out. We check you out, and if all things go well, you become a citizen of Rome. So it's a pretty exciting group we have growing. Growth has been amazing, and we look forward to you joining us if you were looking for a home.
Yeah, we'll get that Discord link in the description as soon as possible. If you're antsy and don't want to wait, just go to the previous episode and look for the link there. It'll be in every episode.
Indeed. Any final thoughts? Anyone else?
Yeah, and to that note, make sure you're keeping your ear to the ground with Rome. We're going to have an update that coming out soon, just so for the purposes of Star Atlas and what we're going to be essentially doing and strategizing. So if you don't want to miss out on that, just hang out.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. So with that, folks, we will see you again, same time, same bat channel next week. Metaverse Nomads are here, and we're talking about all things related to the metaverse, but obviously the hot topic lately, and will likely be the same next week, is Star Atlas. And so until then, we will see you here on this channel. Cheers.
Peace.
Good one.